Don't we all love summer vacation, relaxing, laying out by the pool, barbecues, hitting the beach, doing, well, nothing? Well, how about a summer vacation from your house payments? With SaveWithConrad.com, you can do just that. Reduce your monthly payments by making the equity you built up in your home work for you. You can roll together those high interest rate credit cards into one lower monthly payment and perhaps access some of that newfound equity to turn your house into your dream home with no money out of pocket. And how about this? You get to skip your next two house payments. That's right. You won't have to make your June or your July house payment. You're done until August 1st. Go right now to SaveWithConrad.com. Let my team run the numbers for you for free. There's no obligation, and if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. And did I mention we're offering a 3-year guarantee right now? That's right. That means if at any point interest rates improve over the next 3 years, you get a free refi. That's right. No new lender fees from us. So you get to save money now without wasting money later when the rates improve on a whole second set of closing costs. Why not go to SaveWithConrad.com and get a guarantee? Save money now and save money later with your friend in the mortgage business. That's me, Conrad Thompson at SaveWithConrad.com. Shoot me an email at Conrad@SaveWithConrad.com. Give us a call at 888-425-0105 or get yourself a quick quote. Even talk to a live person right now at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. Let's take a summer vacation from house payments at SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. Eric, what's going on, man? How are you?
This is the most fun morning I think I've had. Yeah, maybe in forever. Wow. I'm doing great, Conrad, and I would ask how you're doing, but I don't think I'm gonna. I'm afraid.
I love you for that. We are excited to be here today. Man, Eric Bischoff looks like shit. Oh, he's back to normal now. We're going to have a lot of fun today, and we hope that you'll join us because we're talking about one of the more beloved figures in the history of professional wrestling. Is that about the right way to describe Jim Duggan, Eric?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I can't wait for us to talk about Duggan. I can't believe we've made it this far, this many years into our program without doing a deep dive on him. But we're going to today, so stay tuned. If you love those personality profiles that we do, we got one coming up here in just a few minutes. But first, we want to talk about the news and notes of the wrestling business right now, Eric. The big news
popping, isn't it? It's popping all over the place.
Man, it's wild. We've got a new world heavyweight champion. Main event Jey Uso is no longer your champion. Gunther is. It was clean in the middle, no controversy. What'd you think, Eric?
I didn't see it. I've been kind of underwater for the last couple of days, so I haven't paid attention even to social media much. So this is news to me in this moment. That's kind of a big deal.
It's a real big deal.
It's a big deal. There's some thinking going on inside of headquarters in Stamford.
Well, I know that Rikishi was disappointed that Jey Uso was in a tag match main event. He was in the Raw main event. Didn't exactly go how anybody expected. But there's lots of speculation. What's next? We've got a Saudi event coming up. We've got Saturday night's main event coming up. And Seth Rollins is running around with the Money in the Bank case. What do you think is next for Jey Uso? Do you think there's no chance they try to turn that dude heel. I mean, he's been selling so much merch. Does he stay as a top guy? Does he look to be a tag team? Is there there's not a heel turn here? Is there? I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that the Uso tag team is going to be back together right away without there being some more story.
That's the fascinating thing about WWE right now. Particularly anything related to the bloodline is that tree, that bloodline tree now has roots that are so deep and have spread out so far and wide that you could literally put 3 halfway creative people in a room long enough to get through a 6-pack of Mountain Dew, maybe a half a bucket of chicken, and you'll come out with probably 3 or 4 good ways to make all this happen. But I mean, for someone like me that looks for that, I look for indications. I try to predict what's going to happen in the future. as opposed to commenting on what happened, yesterday or last month or whatever. That's the fascinating part to me about WWE Creative, is because it is so detailed. There is so much structure there. That detail and that structure allows you to kind of look at the framework of that story, and within the right periods of time within that timeline, shift a little to the left, shift a little to the right, and you've got creative solutions all along the way to take you in a completely different direction, typically much faster than maybe you're used to seeing even 5 or 10 years ago, because everything is happening faster now. Everything. Stories are moving faster. It's just a fascinating time.
It is. And I, for one, am a big Jey Uso fan. I can't wait to see what comes next for him. That dude's just dripping charisma. He is a merch money printer. So
this is almost, I'm sorry, Conrad, to interrupt you, but this is almost the same conversation we were having about R-Truth.
Yes.
2 weeks ago.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Why are they making that decision? He's selling so much merchandise. He's one of the most popular. Wait a minute. Why? That doesn't make sense until it did. So we'll see.
We will see. You brought him up. The other big news over the last several days, of course, is Ron Killings. You and I were talking about him a lot last week on the program. Little did we know he would return the following day at Money in the Bank and help steal the victory for the good guys. Love that. Attacking John Cena with his own world title belt. But then he hijacked Monday Night Raw. He jumped up on the announce desk, coming through the crowd in a hoodie and a ski mask, cut a big promo with the WWE microphone, got the crowd engaged, and cut his hair off, saying that there is no more R-Truth. I am Ron the Truth Killings. I'm not a comedy act. I'm not a sideshow. I'm not a joke. This is great stuff. And of course, there was some controversy coming into this about, was this the plan all along or not? And of course, that didn't have to be a controversy, but I think Triple H accidentally made it one. He did the post-match.
Accidentally? You think he accidentally made it one?
You think he did that on purpose, Eric?
Fuck. Come on. I think I was smelling this rat weeks before, right after the firing.
Hang on. You know it's not a work. I know you haven't been paying attention, but this was definitely not a work. His kids said it wasn't, and R-Truth said it wasn't. And he's back using his name. You believe it all. You think it's all a work.
I don't know. And neither does anybody else, which clearly defines it as a freaking work. People, what is a work? I love it when people use these terms, and not necessarily you, Conrad, but in general, in the internet wrestling community, they throw this word around like they really understand what they're talking about. And they don't. And it's evidenced by people saying it is definitely not a work. Well, if you're going to make that statement, ask yourself, what is a work? In the context of a professional wrestling conversation, what is a work? It's an act. It's a narrative that's designed to create an emotion, a very specific emotion that advances a storyline. It's a work. It's an angle. By fucking definition of what it's achieved and continues to achieve, it's self-defining. It's a work. Do I think that Triple H enhanced the work? Or a little more drama to the work?
Eric, you don't believe this. Hey, let me help you out. Let me just help you out.
Okay.
How
about it?
They put a shirt on sale called Ron Cena to celebrate Killing's opportunity, R-Truth's opportunity against John Cena at Saturday night's main event. Mm-hmm. And it became a massive seller. Mm. And then abruptly, it was no longer for sale and he was released. Mm. And the crowd started chanting, "We want truth. We want truth."
It's almost predictable.
They reached out to him on Friday, negotiated a new deal, He comes back with his name, Ron Killings, and they put a Ron Killings shirt on sale. His kids are chiming in on social media. He's chiming in on social media. And you're maintaining that, no, you're with Triple H. This was the plan all along.
I was going to say, I'm going to take one more run at this, but we don't have all day. So, as I just said a few moments ago, it's a work. It is a narrative. It is an act that creates emotion, a very specific desired emotion. Therefore, it is a work.
I'm not saying it's not a work.
It is creating, and what I said was, and what I believe could be true. And look, the only reason I'm not laughing myself out of the studio right now and rolling around out in the fucking cactus, laughing my ass off at any of this, is okay. When you involve your kids and they're out there, that puts. Yeah, I'm kind of back to center on that one. That's outside of the box of norm. You know what I mean? And I've seen a lot of stuff, and people bring their families in to do some pretty crazy stuff, including my own, by the way, Garrett and I in TNA. So I get it, but I still think, yeah, it's a work. Is there anything that's had more debate back and forth? Is it or isn't it in the last, I don't know, 20 years? Has anybody really debated, kind of like they did with the NWO, and it was Scott Hall initially, not as the NWO went on, then it's, pretty evident to everybody with the brain. But that very first entrance, Scott Hall, May 27, 1996, my birthday in Macon, Georgia, Scott Hall comes down through the crowd. Whoa, never seen that before. Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. This is a shoot. Oh, this isn't a work. This is a shoot. We had them for, I don't know, maybe a week, 2 weeks until, people started figuring it out, probably by the second week. But that was debated. As this is being debated, it's a work. It's created a desired effect. Was it intentional or not? Yeah, we can debate that. I'm leaning more towards the center now with the introduction of the kids' testimony, Your Honor. But by definition, it's a work, and I think it's great.
There's no doubt that it's great and that it's working. I can say that there were quotes out there for what outside WWE appearances were costing and things like that. So it was moving in that direction. But now Ron Killings is back and fans are pumped. No matter how we got here, he's back. Let's enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
I do want to circle back to Hunter in a moment. But first, I want to just share how popular this is. Eric, we talked about at the top of the program that Jey Uso lost the world title. As we sit down to click record, that happened on Monday Night Raw, of course. We're recording a little early because of our travel schedule this week. So it's Wednesday morning right now. So, we're a day and a half later after Monday Night Raw. And that title switch has about 900,000 views on YouTube. But the clip of Ron Killings returning to Monday Night Raw and standing on the desk has 2.2 million views on YouTube. I think this proves, maybe bigger than anything else, matches and belts, they're all important. But man, the story, if you can make people believe, they're going to turn out in a multiple of almost anything else you can do in wrestling. That's a great example of that to me.
Which, Your Honor, leads me to my previous statement. That's why I'm not 100% sure. I mean, this is it. To me, this is like SpaceX kind of precision. This is like taking a rocket up in the sky, up in the universe, bringing it back and having it park itself. That's what this story, and it's probably an extreme example, but the stories are so complex, so detailed, that when something like this occurs, which works out so perfectly, it's hard for me to go, boy, they just made chicken salad out of chicken shit. That's a glass half full approach or half empty approach. I'm looking at more glass half full. I think there's still, they enhance this story. Much like we've taken reality, like Ric Flair and Eric Bischoff in a feud. Well, that started out as reality, and guess what we did? It was a work. It was a work that was based in real life.
Hang on. Does Ric Flair know it's a work? I don't think he knows even now.
I'll let Rick speak for himself. Every time I try to answer for Rick, I get upset, Rick. So we're not going to do that. Don't want to be a part of it. But you got my point, right? It's like.
Here's my point, Eric. This is all self-inflicted by Triple H, in my opinion.
Well, then I hope he does it 4 or 5 times a week.
I'm not talking about the success of the angle. I'm saying the controversy, and we're discussing this because it has been a big talking point. He goes to a post pay-per-view press conference where R-Truth returns, and he's asked about this. And he basically gives the old, hey, watch the program. You know, he's asked, hey, was this always the plan? I mean, when did you, watch the program. That's sort of the.
Yeah, because it keeps people checking out.
I'm not arguing any of that, Eric.
YouTube. He's working it.
Great. Now help me make sense of after he's saying, I mean, first of all, why are we doing a press conference if we're working? Hang on. After we in New Orleans, when The Rock announces, hey, WrestleMania is coming to New Orleans. We've done all these press conferences and just told the gun blue truth about everything. And then every now and again, we'll just decide and we'll start telling stories. And here's the thing. If we're going with what you're suggesting, which is, no, this was the plan all along.
I didn't say that.
Okay. Well, they turned it into work. Clearly, it's not like he's not contracted and he's jumping on the fuck. Let's just talk about what happened Monday night.
All right.
He comes through the crowd wearing a hoodie and a mask, and he's going to take over the show. He's going to stand on the announce desk with a microphone. So it feels like a hostile takeover. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, this isn't supposed to happen. He didn't get an entrance. He didn't come down the ramp. There's no theme song. He just jumped on the table and took his hood off and started cutting a promo.
It's an eye-catching moment, to be sure.
Now, this happened about 4 hours after Triple H posted this. What the fuck? How can we take a picture with the guy in fucking gorilla, pointing to him like, this is the guy you wanted it. Here he is. And oh my God, what the fuck is Ron Killings doing here? This makes no sense, Eric. At least, I mean, you knew when the NWO got hot, we can't sell the NWO t-shirts in the building. We got to sell them in the parking lot. You knew, hey, if it's a hostile takeover, the guys can't just come from the back. They got to come through the crowd. So we're doing some of that. This feels like we're half pregnant. That's all I'm saying.
I don't disagree with you on this one.
Fucking work me all the way or don't. I'm good either way, but
people do make mistakes.
Yes.
That might have been just a bad idea. They happen, especially day of. I
am glad that Ron Killings is back. And I know this was the plan along. I mean, Rock told us a couple of months ago, everything you see on TV is a work. Every promo, every post, every match, it's all scripted. It's all the way it's supposed to be. That feels like a classic WWE line. Speaking of classic, at True Classic, the mission goes beyond fit and fabric. It's about helping guys show up with confidence and purpose. Their gear fits right, it feels amazing, and it's priced so guys everywhere can step into confidence without stepping out of their budget. Now, what really sets True Classic apart? It's not just the fit or the fabric. It's the intention behind everything they do. True Classic was built to make an impact, whether it's helping men show up better in their daily lives, giving back to undeserved communities, or making people laugh with ads that don't take themselves too seriously. True Classic leads with purpose. I've been rocking True Classic for a bit now. I can feel the difference the minute I throw one on. You'll be able to too. It's tailored where you want it. It's relaxed where you need it. There's no bunching. There's no stiff fabric. There's no BS. It's just a clean, effortless fit that actually works for real life. So forget overpriced designer brands and ditch the disposable fast fashion. True Classic is built for comfort, it's built to last, and it's built to give back. You can grab them right now at Target, Costco, or for the best deal possible, head on over to trueclassic.com/83weeks and get hooked up today. That's how you can best support the show and look good doing it. Go right now to trueclassic.com/83weeks. So one of the other things that has popped up in recent weeks is the conversation about what is Vince going to do. We talked about his new company that he's going to be rolling out, 14th and I. He's got a series of management and holding companies set up there. So we're all anxiously awaiting to see what his media moves are going to look like. But somehow, and boy, I'm sure this was just totally random, TMZ just happened to know where Shane McMahon was going to be. And they caught up with him and asked some questions. And they were asking him about, hey, are you going to start another wrestling promotion with your father? I didn't know that the TMZ guys were actually hardcore dirt sheet guys, but maybe they are. What do I know? And Shane said something like, you never know what's going to happen out there. Of course, anything can happen in WWE, but those rumors are false. He was also asked about meeting with AEW, and he said something like, I had a meeting with AEW and wish them continued success, but it's not WWE. It's not the company I helped build. But you never know what's going to happen in this business. So not really a pointed statement. But hey, we got a little bit of press out there. I'm saying it tongue in cheek. Clearly, this is an intentional story. Somebody called TMZ and said, hey, hypothetically, what do you think this is leading to, Eric?
It's hard to imagine, like, I don't think TMZ means much anymore. It used to.
Yeah.
It used to be, you check out, I used to go to TMZ to see if anybody I knew was in trouble from the night before. There was a point in time when, oh, not him again, or not her. Oh, what's she doing? But since then, it's just become one of about a million of these things. I think social media is killing them. And just the quality of things that they break, to me, it's so orchestrated, as you pointed out. It doesn't feel organic like it used to, or authentic. So yeah, it's staged. But the real question is why? What would there be to gain? It's not like they're trying to reach people within the wrestling industry because they've already heard this rumor. They already know this. You're preaching to that choir that's been being that rumor's been circulating and brewing in one way, shape, or form for months now. And with regard to Vince, buying TKO from whatever, that's a couple weeks old, but whatever. So the only reason why I would think there'd be a motive to reach out beyond the existing wrestling audience who already knows is to test the waters. It's a temperature check. Throw a little chum in the water, see if anybody rises to the surface that might be interested, without having to reach out and call people directly. Kind of like putting an ad up, letting people know you're in business, and just sitting back and waiting to kind of sift through the kind of responses you get. Otherwise, Shane was just bored and wanted to have fun.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. Speaking of bored and wanting to have fun, Matt Riddle comes to mind. He did an interview over the weekend, and there were some things said there that I didn't expect. I wanted to play that clip for you, and we'll be sure to give credit to the person who posted this as well. Let's roll that beautiful bean footage for Mr.
There's been a lot of talk that there is heat. No one knows for sure between Triple H and Rock. Do you believe that?
Yeah.
You do believe that?
I believe all of it. I really do. I think with all the stocks being up for grabs, people selling, because I know Vince is sold, Steph is sold, Nick Khan is sold.
Yeah.
A lot of people are selling their stock, and usually you don't do that unless something's going on behind closed doors. And I honestly think there was already a power struggle when I was there, trying to get Vince out and trying for Steph and Triple H to get in that position. And now that they got him out, now it's Endeavor trying to get them out, or Rock, or whoever it is. So I think that's just the nature of the beast.
Would you ever go back?
I'd go back tomorrow. I'd go back anytime. You know, I don't hold a grudge, and I like wrestling. So.
And I've never asked you about this company. Would you ever consider working for AEW?
Yeah, I would totally work for AEW. I feel like when they first started, they hired a lot of former WWE guys, and I think that left a bad taste in their mouth because other than Moxley and maybe another couple, it didn't really work out too well. Most of them just got fat checks and didn't do much. So, and I think they don't want to deal with that. That's why they're using more homegrown talent.
They had that issue with CM Punk, and that went belly up for them.
Belly up and cost them fans money and everything else.
Shout out to News 4 Jax reporter Scott Johnson. He's got a local station show there called Going Ringside. And he caught that interview with Matt Riddle. And man, I didn't expect to hear Matt Riddle talking about so much TKO and Endeavor stuff, but I know you have worked with Matt Riddle a little bit here and there between WWE and MLW. Wanted to play that clip for you and get your reaction today, Eric.
First of all, I like you. When I first saw Matt and listened to his promos, when he got paired up with Goldberg, especially, or I'm sorry, Randy Orton. I really liked the character, but I thought, man, that's not a guy I'm probably going to sit down and have much of a conversation with about anything other than wrestling, of course. I just, didn't feel like we'd even be on the same wavelength, literally. However, I got to spend quite a bit of time with Matt in the 2 appearances I did with MLW when we weren't shooting. He is an incredibly intelligent guy. It's so easy to write him off because of the way he presents himself. But if you underestimate that guy intellectually, no wonder he's a good fighter. Let's put it that way. He's a very, very smart man. And I knew he was really bright because I've had some pretty interesting conversations with him about things outside of wrestling. But I didn't know he had quite that much kind of corporate merger acquisition kind of picture taking ability in his head. He's a pretty bright guy. And he's not afraid to tell you what he thinks. And that's what endears him to me. It's one of the reasons I like being around him, not to sound corny about it. I like being in his presence, man. He's got a good energy about him. He's fun. He's positive as hell. He's very, very honest. And he's got a great sense of humor. It's amazing. I would not be surprised if he's not back in WWE. AEW, there's no way of knowing how anybody perceives anybody over there. But he's a very entertaining performer. I'd be shocked if he didn't end up back in WWE.
It feels like if he was going to AEW, it would have already happened. Don't you agree?
I do. And I think that would be a bad choice because I say that because he would need to be in an environment where he had a lot of people that he could work with, that he could get chemistry with. I'm not sure that you could get that in AEW, just looking in, just some of the people that I know, some of the people I think I can probably read pretty well. I just don't think Matt would have the ability to develop enough chemistry in AEW to be there for any length of time and enjoy it. He could ride it out, like he said, just, taking a cheese and going home. Great. But for Matt to have fun, he's got to be able to work with the right people. I just don't think there's enough of them.
We'll see what happens with Matt Riddle. We'll also see what happens with The Rock and Triple H. I was kind of surprised to hear someone who's been there, who has a relationship, certainly with Triple H, think that was a real possibility. I mean, we've certainly heard talking heads sort of say that type of thing, but I don't know. It feels different when one of the boys does. Hey, the boys are headed back to Las Vegas, Eric. You predicted it last week here on the program that WrestleMania is going to wind up in Las Vegas. They'll be back-to-back in a gambling town, a casino town. Of course, they did this famously once with Donald Trump in Atlantic City at WrestleMania 4 and 5. Next year, though, Eric, WrestleMania is not on Easter weekend. That's like April 4th. That's a couple of weeks prior to this, or April 5th, I guess it was. So a couple of weeks prior to this is Easter, but yeah, back-to-back Vegas shows. No surprise, I suppose. What say you?
No surprise to me. We called it. And we do that a lot on this show, don't we? I mean, a lot of podcasters love to talk about what happened last night or last week. Give you their expert hindsight 2020 perspective. Here, brother, we tell you what, this is like Nostradamus kind of stuff. Accuracy rate is ridiculous here. It's actually kind of scary. Anyway, where were we? Oh, Vegas. Yeah, baby. Vegas. I can't wait to not go. So,
it's a lot, isn't it?
it just sucks the soul right out of you. I mean, for me. And again, you know, I've been to Vegas a lot. When I go to Vegas now, I want to find the best restaurants and a good show. I am that guy now. Now, you know, 35 years ago, I was the other guy. So I get it. There's a lot of the other guys that still enjoy Vegas. But I'm not one of them. So I'll stay home. I'll go to Vegas before or after, and I'll have a really great meal and be able to at least get around fairly easily. So yeah, I'll pass on this one. But I understand why they're doing it. I think financially, it'll probably be. I think you'll get more action early on. I think, you know, there was a lot of speculation as to, there was, I should say, some speculation, you know, a month or two out from WrestleMania about how the tickets weren't really moving and how they're going to move tickets. And, oh my gosh, this is a failure. WWE made a big mistake, blah, 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 blah. And then they eventually got sold. And I'm sure there was some great tactical work involved in that as well. But I don't think they're going to have that issue now or next year, I should say.
Let's talk about what's next for Mariah May. We know that she is the recently departed AEW star who showed up on NXT last week, but we didn't hear her name. But we found out earlier this week, Eric, she does have a name, and it's Blake Monroe. So she's made her debut here in WWE's NXT program. I assume she's going to be relocating to Orlando if she didn't already live there. It feels like almost every wrestler lives in Orlando or Tampa area. But I guess there's some controversy. This wasn't a name I was familiar with. But friend of the show, Andrew Dice Clay, is, and he found that there's actually an adult film star using this name, or there was once upon a time. I guess that's worth a Google. This feels like something that WWE has learned from before. There was a group of girls a few years ago. It was a trio. And I forget exactly what they were calling themselves, but it also had been marketed in adult films. Man, this is less than ideal, is it not?
Doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, I think as a culture, and speaking about entertainment culture, we've gotten so numb to every extreme that's out there. It's just another day in the office anymore. I don't think it matters at all. I don't think it matters to advertisers anymore. As long as it's driving audience, eyeballs show up, people, you know, respond to a call to action. As long as it's working from an ad revenue point of view, I just don't think people care anymore. Years ago, maybe longer, 10 years ago for sure. Certainly, 20 years ago when I was active in the business, it would have been an issue. Somebody had egg on their face. Somebody would have probably, had a conversation that got a little uncomfortable in terms of why did you do this or who approved this thing. But now it's like, that's funny. Let's go with that. Oh, yeah, the kids will get it. Oh, yeah, 18 to 34, they've been spanking it for the last 4 years. Absolutely. Well, hey, we do dick bill spots on this show.
Well, no, I'm with you, but I'm saying, don't you think that, I mean, listen, I could be wrong, but I feel like most women's wrestling is aimed at little girls. I don't have a single guy friend who's like, man, I can't wait to go watch this fucking so-and-so match. I'm not saying that
they don't say it. Of course not. They don't say it.
I'm just saying, like, when I find myself as a dad with two daughters When I'm talking about wrestling to them, I'm talking about the quote unquote divas matches. I'm talking about the ladies matches.
Yeah.
And now my girls are 21. That's one thing, but I do think, I don't know, that's a slippery slope. That being said, it is worth pointing out Shawn Michaels was a pretty famous wrestler. And I think if you spelled it right, you might find something that was a little surprising. No surprise that we love Mando on this program, though. You know, Eric's been burning it at both ends lately. He's been traveling the country for Real American Freestyle. And when you're doing that amount of travel, you're going to have some long days. He considers Mando his tag team partner. It's whole body deodorant that's got like clinical strength sweat control. You see, Mando is not just your typical deodorant. It really is clinical strength. It's at least twice as good at controlling sweat compared to like the standard deodorant. And it will control your sweat and your odor for 72 hours. You see, after just 12 hours, your underarm sweat is going to be reduced by 92%. And that's because this stuff really works. There's also double protection because it's going to tackle the odor and the sweat. I'm a big believer in this product. We've talked about it for a long time, but the idea that you've now got Mando deodorant plus sweat control as a solid stick, dude, that's a big deal, especially if you live in a hot or humid area like I do. And down here in the South, whether you're in Alabama or Georgia or Florida or Tennessee or Mississippi or whatever, man, you need this. Go right now to shopmando.com. I want you to experience this double protection of Mando deodorant plus sweat control. And here's the really cool thing about this. We've mentioned this before. This product was created by a lady who went to the same high school as Eric Bischoff.
Yay!
And she realized that we need to re-engineer deodorant to not just mask the odor, but to prevent it. And 100% of the study participants experienced all-day odor protection. It's made with premium ingredients. I'm a big believer in this. I want you to go check it out. It's a brand new product from Mando. It's called Deodorant Plus Sweat Control Solid Stick. How about that? The solid stick deodorant is what you're looking for. Now, if you go right now, I want you to learn about the Mando Starter Pack. I think it's perfect for new customers at shopmando.com. You'll get that solid stick deodorant. You'll get the cream tube deodorant, and you'll even get 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes. You even get free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers can get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That's like 40% off your starter pack when you use the code 83weeks at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered with deodorant plus sweat control. Say goodbye to sweat stains and say hello to long-lasting freshness. By the way, those deodorant wipes, Eric, they're handy on the boat. We're doing a boat day.
Let's talk a little bit about, you pointed out Dr. Shannon Klingman, by the way, the gynecologist that created the Mando product line. Incredibly brilliant woman, obviously, but really, really smart at business too. She went to Minnetonka Senior High School, where I went. But, I'm thinking about Minnetonka never gets the rub that Robbinsdale gets, because Robbinsdale, Minnesota is known for guys like Greg Gagne, Larry the Axe-Headdy, Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, John Nord. It goes on, Demolition. It goes on and on and on. The Beverly Brothers. A lot of great wrestlers came out of Robbinsdale High School, and they get all the publicity, right? They get the big wrestling rub. Minnetonka Senior High School, by the way, where yours truly went to high school, along with Dr. Shannon Klingman, well, probably her mother or father, I don't know. But also the home high school, Jeremy Borash, who is now the showrunner, from what I read at least, for the AAA event that just took place. Oh, and who else do we have? The creator of Dark Side of the Ring.
Oh, yeah. Evan Husney?
Yeah, Evan Husney. He also Minnetonka Senior High School. So a lot of wrestling, a lot of great minds came out of Minnetonka Senior High School that ended up really impacting wrestling. Yeah, Robbinsdale deserves some credit, but so does Minnetonka. Go Dr. Shannon Klingman and Mando. I love your products, girl. We're going to have to get you on here and interview you sometime.
Shopmando.com. Use the promo code 83weeks. Eric, we got to talk about a big show that happened over the weekend. We're talking about When Worlds Collide, the big AAA/NXT show. And it was announced that at its peak, 764,389 live concurrent viewers made it the largest live audience in the history of a YouTube broadcast for WWE. In the first 24 hours alone, the show was watched by more than 4.1 million viewers on YouTube. And hashtag Worlds Collide was the #1 trending topic globally on Saturday. And WWE generated more than 32 million social views across all platforms in the first 24 hours. You mentioned him a moment ago. Friend of the show, Jeremy Borash, was the lead person in charge. It was referred to as a Jeremy Borash production, and he handled all aspects of the live broadcast. He, of course, did this once upon a time for TNA and then later for NXT. He's kind of been Triple H's right-hand man at times, and I guess in more recent years, Shawn Michaels. But he's also, for a long time, been great close personal friends with Dorian Roldan, and he feels like the perfect liaison. I couldn't be happier for Corey Graves getting the opportunity to do commentary on this show and sit next to a friend of the show, Conan. I thought they did a fabulous job. I'm happy for Dorian, who you and I had lunch with a few years ago in Dallas. Thrilled for Jeremy Borash, but maybe most happy for Mr. Iguana, a guy who was going to get the rocket strapped to him. All the buzz coming out of the program was around this character and this persona. The first time I saw it a few years ago in Mexico City, I told Dorian and Conan, hey, man, if that guy was in WWE, they would sell so many of those stuffed iguanas. Like, that guy's going to be a mega star, Eric. And this was a coming out party for AAA, for Mr. Iguana, for Dorian, for Jeremy Borash. High fives all around for this success, don't you think?
Smoked it in so many ways. Smoked it. This is the next evolution of Lucha in the United States. Lucha Libre in the United States. And I can't help but say it. Somebody gave luchadors a national television platform back in the 90s, and they have been growing that opportunity ever since. Like to think we had a little bit to do with that. But man, to sit back and watch what guys like Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero and so many of the luchadors that I had an opportunity to work with, but have gone on and new ones have made the scene now that I've never met. That whole Lucha Libre category has expanded so much since the mid and late 90s, and it's becoming a cultural phenomenon within a cultural phenomenon.
Yes.
And that's badass to watch. Hats off to everybody that's ever contributed to that, and especially guys like the aforementioned luchadors that really, I think, planted the flag for the Lucha Libre experience in the United States. Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, examples. So happy to see it because you love to see growth. And I'd love to see what any neighborhood in America is going to look like on Halloween night.
Yes.
There's like thousands of little iguanas running through the streets with bags of candy. It sounds like a premise to a horror flick to me.
Sounds like a sequel to Magnolia, but I for one, and for it, I'm all about Dorian, all about Jeremy Borash. Thrilled for Mr. Iguana. I can't wait to see what's next. Our topic today, though, is a retro topic. So we've covered our news and notes. I guess before I move on, Eric, is there anything else that you want to get off your chest about what's going on in wrestling right now?
No, man, I think we covered it. Covered all the fun stuff.
Before we jump into Jim Duggan, do you want to mention, is there any sort of update you can give us on Real American Freestyle? I'm putting you on the spot right now. Anything you want to share, or you got to play it close to the vest for now?
We're signing new wrestlers, almost 3 or 4 times a day. We've got some of the best elite quality freestyle wrestlers from around the world. Russia, Japan now, India, which I'm very excited about because we've got our eyes on doing some things over in India. So we're just really building out infrastructure. We've got our production team in place, a name that some people may recognize. from the television side of professional wrestling. David Sahadi is working as our showrunner. He'll be working alongside of me to deliver the final product. A lot of the people on the crew have spent some time in WWE, and a lot of them, more of them from UFC, quite honestly, because the nature of our product, it is a legitimate combat sport. And while we're going to borrow some elements, just like UFC has borrowed elements from the entertainment side of WWE over the years, quite a few of them actually, we'll also be taking from things that have worked in professional wrestling as far as creating our larger than life characters and imagery and graphics and just the overall presentation and production values. But at the end of the day, once the whistle blows, this is people talk about, is it a work? Is it a shoot? Well, this is a shoot, people. This is the literal definition of shoot wrestling. It could not be any more literal than what you're going to see in Real American Freestyle. But some of the interviews that I did over the last week, like Kennedy Blades, for example, just an absolutely amazing young woman. She is going to be a star like we have never seen before. You've heard that before, right? She's beautiful. She's so poised, incredibly intelligent, and she's a card-carrying badass. Her favorite thing is belly to back suplexes.
Oh, wow.
That's her thing. And she's really good at her thing. She won a silver medal in Olympics in her weight division, last Olympics. She's favored for a gold. She is such a badass, but if you see her on the street, she looks like a runway model, like she's off the cover of Vogue. Unbelievable. Austin Gomez, incredible backstory. We're talking about Mexico. He is an American of Hispanic heritage who is competing for an opportunity to be on the Mexican Olympic freestyle wrestling team. So he's going back and forth in training. His story, absolutely phenomenal. Real Woods. Look this guy up. Absolutely fascinating. So I spent all week learning these guys' backstories and Kennedy's as well, and helping to develop these characters in terms of how we want to present them. But we don't have gold to work with. We have platinum to work with. I'm very excited about it. And quite honestly, pretty blessed to be working with a very high quality group of people. It's going to be fun.
Can't wait to see more Real American Freestyle. Stay tuned. We're going to have more information in the coming weeks here on the program. But right now, we're here to talk about the man of the hour. Jim Duggan. Man, one of the more iconic characters in the history of wrestling. I do feel like, Eric, when we talk about the real legends of professional wrestling, certainly there were legends, in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. But when Vince McMahon went national, it does feel like there were a handful of characters that were just so mainstream. I mean, obviously Hulk Hogan's at the top of the list, but these iconic characters people remember all these years later. The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Junkyard Dog. There's so many classic personas, and I think Hacksaw's, man, he's right in the middle of all that, is he not?
God, he sure is. And you think back and why is that? Why do some wrestlers like Hacksaw, why does he become such an endearing character and people love that character decades after he's stepped foot in the ring competitively? Why is that? And I think it's because a lot of the guys you mentioned, obviously, at the time when Vince went national,
yes,
that was such an amazing pivot point. I may say the most important one of several that would occur over the following 3 decades. But that one in particular was so significant that people that were part of it, even if you were a young kid, it had such an impact on you that it just sticks. It's embedded, it's imprinted. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, when I was a kid, was fun. And that subconscious imprint stays with you through life. Hacksaw comes out to Cody, Wyoming once a year, and his wife. I'm not sure if he's going to be here next week or not. Sonny Ono's coming in. Ernest the Camp Miller's coming in, so we're going to have fun next week. But Jim Duggan and his wife usually come, and this town loves him. They don't want him to leave. It's just fun to watch. And it's because I think the people that see him, they're old enough to remember, obviously. He just represents some of the best parts of their childhood in some cases. So I think that's the phenomenon. I'm going to go with it.
Let's agree, man. I mean, what an interesting time in the wrestling world it was. You know, that mid 80s when he started that pivot, it does feel like from like 85 to 90, those characters, whether it's the $1 Million Man or Mr. Perfect or Honky Tonk Man or Ravishing Rick Rude or the Ultimate Warrior, or hell, even Coco Beware. I mean, Jimmy Hart and Tito Santana. There's so many iconic characters that they did become, you know, a part of pop culture. So it makes sense when you get your hands on WCW and you're trying to monetize this thing. And I know that you've taken some heat for this in the past, and I think unfairly, and I say this as a guy from the South, but you wanted to disassociate yourself with this being a regional promotion. And make no mistake, even though they had a national television product through WTBS, Jim Crockett Promotions, aka Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, is a regional promotion. Nothing wrong with that. But the Carolinas and Virginia and that sort of thing, that's where they were making their money. And of course, now Vince has taken this thing global. WCW needs to do the same. So I think that was an initiative of yours as quickly as you could. Remove any and all regional feel from the program because you want it to feel larger than life. And that is one of the things that Vince McMahon was able to successfully do. Now, part of that may be because he was in the media capital of the world, New York. Not really. He was in Connecticut, but he pretended like he was from New York. And then when we were sort of pushing WrestleMania at WrestleMania 2, after the first one was in Madison Square Garden, we went to other large media markets. We were in New York. We were in Los Angeles. We were in Chicago. That's 1, 2, and 3 of the media markets here in the United States. So for a company based in Atlanta, which was not one of those big 3, and it is based in the South, and you're from Minnesota, you had to know, hey, guys, we're going to need some global appeal. Is that one of the reasons you liked going to Hulk Hogan's Bag of Tricks, if you will? Because, I mean, the name of the cartoon, you know, it was Hulk Hogan and Friends. And that's kind of what this was going to be for WCW, too. If he can bring along some of these iconic characters, like a Jimmy Hart, like a Hacksaw Jim Duggan, certainly along the way, we'll pick up Bobby the Brain Heenan and Mean Gene Okerlund. Did you like, you know, sort of borrowing some of their credibility as, you know, global presences in the wrestling space, or am I overthinking that?
No, but I want to kind of reframe the context a little bit.
Sure.
My intention or my goal was never to eliminate any and all Southern influence on the show. I think that's overstating it. Did I want to balance it? Yeah, because we were far too unbalanced. In terms of the brand position of our company, the most forward-facing, consistently obvious parts of our show had a very Southern vibe to it. Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, you know, going all the way back to the Crockett's and some of those announcers. Certainly our bigger stars at the time all came from that territory. And as such, kind of represented that regional Southern style or approach to the presentation, because that style was much different. It was a weekly territory in the South primarily, whereas Minnesota was a monthly territory. So it had a different type of presentation. Stories moved a little slower, for example. They weren't as angle intensive, as another example. When they did have angles in the South, they tended to be angles because they had so many of them. In order to, you know, because of the weekly territory nature, your angles tended to try to top the one the week before it. And they got very, very colorful. Not so much in Minnesota. So there was just presentation differences between North and South. It wasn't necessarily personal preference or a bias one way or the other. as much as it was me having the presence of mind to go, okay, we need to grow our audience outside of the audience we already have. We're dominant in the Southeast because the presence had been so prolonged, established, right? But now I need to go outside of my congregation, so to speak. I need to preach outside of the congregation. How do I do that? I don't know. Bring in some characters that appeal to that audience because of the exposure they've had in WWE. It's really simple. It's been made out to be, oh, Hogan wanted all his friends to work for him. Bullshit. I was not influenced at all from Hulk Hogan about whether or not to bring in so zero conversation about it until after the fact. And Hulk was really happy because who doesn't want to hang around Hacksaw Jim Duggan backstage? So there was a lot of that, but so much has been made of it. Now, Jimmy Hart came with Hulk and still is with Hulk and travels everywhere with Hulk. So that was just part of the package. Brutus, yeah, I did. I caved on that one. But beyond that, sure, he suggested people, and from time to time, some of them I brought in, some of them I didn't. Some I brought in, they didn't stick around long. One reason or another. Honky Tonk Man. So yeah, I brought in because I wanted to appeal to the audience outside of the one I already had. Because you can't grow if you don't. Here's the other reason I brought in Hacksaw. Or I should say, not the reason I brought him in, but one of the reasons why I felt so comfortable bringing him in is because his crowd reaction was absolutely predictable. You could bet your mortgage on it.
Yes.
Absolutely bet your mortgage that when Hacksaw Jim Duggan came out, I don't care what happened before it. I don't care what happened earlier in the night. I don't care what's going on after the Jim Duggan match. I know exactly what's going to happen when he walks through the curtain. As a producer, that's kind of valuable. Comes in handy. It's a nice little tool to have in your toolkit when you need it. That's Jim. That's because of the character that Jim built and created.
How do you first meet Jim in WCW here in 1994?
Yeah. I knew who he was, but I had never met him.
Did he? I'm not asking this to be funny. I'm asking because I don't know. Did he have an agent? Was that a thing back then, or do you just reach out to him directly? How does that all come to be?
I wouldn't have reached out directly. He would have. It would have been either through, depending on when he came in, through Dusty, Ric Flair, Kevin Sullivan, maybe Jimmy Hart. Went to Kevin or went to Dusty or went to Ric Flair. I don't know. It got to me, and I approved it for the reasons that I just described. It was not even much of a decision. It was a little bit of a negotiation. I think Jim was a little bit disappointed, but no, I didn't deal with his agent.
The first time we see him is in a backstage segment. He's at Bash at the Beach, and this is obviously a big pay-per-view, a watershed deal for WCW, the biggest pay-per-view in history at that point. And he's going to do a post-match interview where he's joined by Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Brian Blair, Brutus Beefcake, and we even saw Brian Pillman and Bill Shaw in the background. And yeah, we see a couple of days later, as a reminder, that show went down July 17th, 1994. So that's really the first time we're seeing him in WCW right there in the backstage area, in the locker room, you might say. But a couple of days later, that's when we see Jim have his first match in WCW, and it was at Center Stage. He picks up a win over Tex Slazenger, who we know these days as Phineas Godwin. But this is quite a debut here for Jim Duggan to be backstage with Hulk Hogan, the biggest star in the history of wrestling, right after he's won the big gold belt. It was something longtime NWA fans never thought they would see, Hulk Hogan with that title. It broke every record. And then a couple of days later, he's at Center Stage. And I know you didn't necessarily love Center Stage, and I know Tony Schiavone didn't necessarily love Center Stage, but that building for a long time was uniquely WCW. So to see Jim Duggan in that environment, that was a double take for wrestling fans. What do you remember about this?
It was an exciting time. Looking back, it's funny you mentioned center stage, and I was back in Atlanta for MLW right after the first of the year at center stage. And it was such a cool experience. And I was walking around early in the day and just thinking about just during my time in WCW, the history and the big moments, really significant moments that in today's world would have been saved for a pay-per-view. You would have charged people $80 to be a part of it. But it took place in this small, it's actually quite nice now. It's been remodeled and updated a lot. But when we were there, it was kind of a small, dingy, dark, barely serviceable because it was so small. But man, the history that went down there is pretty awesome. What do I remember of it? Just fun, excitement, anticipation. We're still at that stage. Hogan had just joined the company, really. He hadn't been there long enough for any of the enthusiasm to even begin to die down. So at that point in time, everything surrounding Hulk, at least in WCW, was pretty. It was a pretty fun time. Everybody was having fun.
I want to read you something that you mentioned a minute ago, and I know you didn't read the research this week. You like to be surprised. Check out what Dave Meltzer wrote about Jim Duggan's debut at center stage. Let me find it here. Oh, this is from the Torch. I'm sorry. Wade Keller wrote, Duggan came out, announced, and received one of the bigger pops ever at center stage. He appeared to be in better shape than when we last saw him on national television, although his match style was the same. You said it a minute ago. You could bet your freaking mortgage you knew what the reaction would be. And Wade says his debut here at center stage is one of the louder pops in the history of center stage. How about that?
Yeah. And it is, it's interesting. And I thought, when I say this, because I'm going to be honest with you, I really, really have a lot of respect for Jim. And sometimes when I'm, doing this show with you, I'm just giving you what's on my mind at the time, and I don't think through it too much. And sometimes I regret what I say because I know it doesn't come off really the way I wanted it to or intended it to. I go back and I'll listen to myself and go, "Oh my God, Dick, you could have been a little nicer about that. Could have said that just a little differently and made the same point." But yes, Jim, with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Absolutely, the pop was predictable. That's why his contract was such an easy thing for me, at least, to negotiate. But that doesn't always translate to storytelling potential. Sometimes you need that guy or that woman that can come out there and just generate that kind of instantaneous excitement, enthusiasm, support. Go out there, have a fun, entertaining match. Keep it a little on the short side so that now we can transition into something more intense. That's a valuable piece of property. That's a valuable talent to be able to bring to the equation. It doesn't automatically translate to main event opportunity, but it doesn't diminish the value either. So when I talk about why I would make a decision and say something like, predictable reaction, that's one thing. And the audience will say, well, why didn't you use him more? Or why didn't he end up in the main event? Why didn't he get a world title shot? They're not necessarily the same thing. Just wonderful.
The Torchwood reports in early August 1994, Hogan's power within WCW coming off the success of the Bash is high. Because of his influence, Honky Tonk Man will be joining Hacksaw Jim Duggan as a WCW newcomer. Brutus Beefcake and the Bushwhackers are also possible newcomers. I'm not burying Hogan. I'm a Hogan fan. Send me your hate tweets. Hey, it's Conrad. But I do want to ask, is that Hogan's influence, or is that you just knowing, hey, man, how many more of these characters? I mean, if that works so well, why not give me a little more?
Well, like I said, Brutus was he wasn't quite forced upon me. But there was a lot of pressure there. And it wasn't like, you got to do this, it wasn't that. It was more, hey man, I'm telling you, I think think this would be good for us. I think we can make this work. I've got some ideas for this guy. Not right now. I've got some other fires to put out. Let's get back to it. And then the next time would be, hey, have you thought any more about Brutus? It was more subtle than it was over the top pressure, but it was definitely there. No question about it.
I know that I shouldn't say I know. I believe there's been talk through the years that some of these guys actually came in on per night deals. Is that the way you remember it? Would Honky Tonk Man and Hacksaw, would they have come in with contracts or were they on nightly deals? I guess we should also explain the difference. A lot of wrestlers in pro wrestling would have a contract for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and they're going to get a check every week or every other week or once a month, but they're going to get regular checks on a consistent basis. And then other wrestlers are sometimes under the employ of a major organization and they have a nightly deal or a per appearance deal, meaning if you don't work, you don't get paid. But if you're booked, here's what your rate is and we'll pay you that. That's the impression I was under, that maybe Honky Tonk Man had more of a nightly deal. Did Hacksaw start with a nightly deal, or is that all just way off base as best you could?
No, I think Honky Tonk did start out with a nightly deal for whatever reason. I couldn't tell you what the reason was, other than perhaps I wasn't that enthusiastic to start with. That could be true. In fact, it probably is. But I don't think that was the case with Hacksaw.
Okay.
He may remember it differently. I'm pretty sure I went right to contract, and I think he was at $150 a year at the time.
Well, all right. Damn. We're just getting the real numbers here today. Hey, let's talk about the indie policy. I was able to see where during at least his first run, he was making appearances outside of WCW on independents. Do you think that's because you wanted him to honor his existing deals? Like I've heard that Vince McMahon used to do that with talent. Like if they had already been advertised for XYZ, he would sometimes want them to honor those commitments. Still come on, join the company, but if you gave your word, you need to, do right by those promoters and go appear. I always appreciated that about Vince McMahon. Is that what you're doing here? Do you think that he already had these booked, or did WCW allow certain guys to accept independent bookings if they weren't already working for WCW at the time that weekend?
No, I would have let a talent with previous commitments fulfill the obligations.
I got you.
Absolutely. I would not, and expressly forbade, I guess, in the past tense, wrestlers working independents. If they were under contract to me, I was militant about them not working for other companies. And it so much so that it became one of the big issues that I had with Conan and with the luchadors that I was bringing in from Mexico is, they thought they could work under the table and I wouldn't find out. And in probably a lot of cases, they were right. Not a lot of publicity at the time came out of Mexico, especially for, independent shows that weren't televised. And a lot of my luchadors were working these indie shows, which is, I get it. But when they get hurt, they still want me to pay them. What's one thing if you get hurt in my ring, I get it. That fair is fair. But if I'm paying you on a contract and you're supposed to be exclusive to me, but you're moonlighting on the weekends with your buddy who's a promoter, and you get hurt, now we're in a fist fight legally. And that's why I was so adamant against it at the time.
Well, I know something else you're adamant about is anything worth doing is worth doing well. And that's why Eric has a tag team partner known as Blue Chew Max. It's going to knock your socks off. It combines the active ingredients of Viagra into Cialis into one chewable. Think of this as like the tag team specialists of getting your wiener rock hard. And now you can be ready whenever she or he needs it. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You can also get your first month of Blue Chew free. You see, great sex is just a few clicks away. You'll sign up at BlueChew.com. You'll consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part is it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. So what are you waiting for? Make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use the promo code 83weeks. Just pay the $5 shipping. That's promo code 83weeks. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. Eric, we got to talk about Fall Brawl 1994 because something pretty crazy happens. I'm kind of shocked that it happened, if I'm honest with you. I don't know why I am, but I am. Ricky Steamboat's going to come out in what would have been the third match on the card and announce that he's unable to wrestle due to a back injury. And Nick Bockwinkel, who's the on-air commissioner for WCW at the time, he's going to award the United States title to Steve Austin, and they're going to trade words, I guess, to maybe set up a possible Steamboat return. But then Bockwinkel tells Austin he has to defend the title that night. And all of a sudden, Jim Duggan comes out. Austin wants to leave. Bockwinkel's going to push him. Duggan backdrops Austin, splashes him, and 35 seconds later wins the title. So you've got what's about to be the biggest star in the business. Now, nobody knew that at the time, but he is a talent that the internet wrestling fans, I guess this is 94, the hardcore smart marks, man, they absolutely loved what Brian Pillman and Steve Austin and guys like this were doing. But Duggan was the more established star. He had more name at the time, if you will. He was a bigger star. That's just all there is to it. But when he beats him in 35 seconds, and knowing that some of these smart marks don't necessarily like Jim Duggan's style of wrestling or style of matches, this gets hit with a lot of criticism in the reader pages of the Observer and the Torch. How do you remember this creative coming to be? I know Steamboat had to be disappointed that he wasn't able to wrestle because I can only imagine he and Austin having a great match. I can't imagine that Austin was thrilled with this creative. What do you remember about all that night?
What year was that?
1994. No, I'm sorry, 1995. I'm wrong. September of 94.
September 94 would probably still be, is it Dusty or Rick? Can't remember. I think it might have been Dusty. Point being, I wasn't involved in creative, so I couldn't tell you, reactions, conversations, what did I hear, because I wasn't involved in the process. Hearing you lay that out and looking at that footage, I'm thinking to myself, I'd like to do that one over again.
You would.
But here's the deal. In that moment in time,
yes,
the facts as you lay them out were absolutely true. And I'll go even further and say, yeah, the dirt sheet smart marks, because there was no internet at the time.
That's right.
There was no other platform. It was all people that read the dirt sheets, whether it was Keller's or dipshits or somebody else's. So that's all there was. And that represented, I don't know, 0.1% of the television audience at the time.
That's fair.
So how did I react to their bullshit? On a visceral level, it pisses me off the same way it does today when I see people print stupid shit, put it out there as fact, and have an adverse impact on the product as a result. I just think that's bad. It starts out bad and it only gets worse as it travels when you put out stupid stuff.
Well, hang on. What's stupid about saying they didn't like it? I mean, their opinion is.
You're asking me my reaction to the dirt sheets and the people that came out and said they didn't like it. My point is.
No. I wasn't asking any of that. I'm asking, was Austin upset? Do you remember there being, take me backstage that night? Was there a discussion? Was there any, was an advocate? Hey, I don't think we should do this. I think we should. Was there any of that? Or was it just another day at the office?
No, there probably was that. But my point is it wouldn't have taken place with me. I would not have been involved in those discussions. That wasn't my role. I had zero confidence in my abilities in creative. I certainly didn't want to get in the middle of trying to manage and massage talents issues, because that's a full-time job that only a shrink should have, professionally trained. I didn't want anywhere near that. So I avoided intentionally getting sucked into those conversations as best I could.
So it didn't become something that landed on your lap. Like,
Not on
there
my
wasn't
lap.
a problem.
And I might well have been sitting in a truck at the time all this was going on, right? I did have other things that I was focused on that did take up all my time. I just chose to focus on the things that I thought I could make a contribution to and avoid the things that I didn't think I could and put people in charge that could.
Let me ask you this. I know that I shouldn't say I know. We've heard that if there were talent in WWE that maybe had a problem with something in creative and they just didn't like it, they weren't a fan of it, that sometimes they would communicate that to the agent, and the agent might suggest, well, you got to go talk to Vince. And so we've heard that there would oftentimes be a line outside of Vince's office waiting to talk to him. So I think it's natural that wrestling fans assume that, hey, Eric may have had similar situations. You're saying, at least in this in this year, in this time period, that did not happen. So my question is, whose office were they lining up in front of? Would that have been something they take to Dusty or Rick and they make a decision and they know that whether it's Dusty or Rick or whoever, they know you have their back?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It would have been. Now, look, here's the other thing that went on in WCW. And another reason why, this is a really good point. I'm not going to mention any names this time because there's no reason to. But there was a common pattern in WCW that I observed when I was a talent, when I was just a potted plant, not a threat to anybody. Friends with very few, not enemies with anybody, but just a potted plant. So you would hear a lot of things that gave you a pretty good idea of how certain aspects of the business operated, right? Well, if one of the things I learned early on is if you're a talent, keep in mind, I'm dressing over here in the corner and there's two guys sitting over here on a bench getting dressed, talking in front of me because he's just a C-string announcer. What does he care? So I'm hearing these conversations, and there's a pattern that existed amongst talent that if you didn't like creative, you didn't want to go to the booker. I'm going to use Dusty in this case. You might not want to go to Dusty because he's going to see through your bullshit. A guy like Dusty will know when you're just trying to serve yourself or whether you've got a better idea for a story. You don't want to go there because you know what the answer is going to be. So you go to somebody that works with Dusty and creative, and you know that person has Dusty's ear. And you'll plead your case there. Well, if you don't get any traction there, you'll go down the line and you'll talk to this person. And you're going to keep talking to people within that sphere until you find a supporter.
Yeah.
And then, as an example, you find someone that says, yeah, Eric, I know that's what you want. I know what Dusty wants to do, Eric, but I agree with you. Yours is probably a better idea. That's what I would do, but I'm not calling that shot. But you're probably right. Talent's going to run off, go do what they want to do, and when they get busted, no, he told me I could. It's this thing. It's fading the heat, right? And the more people you get involved in those conversations, because it's not always like, no, I don't want to support your idea. Go find somebody else. It's not that easy. It's networking. And you keep networking until you get the support or the answer you want, and then you go do it anyway. And you've got a safety net because all these other people were involved in the discussion, and you thought it was okay because you thought they were talking to Dusty. That kind of bullshit went on so much in WCW that when I finally became in charge, I wanted nothing to do with that process. I didn't want anybody to ever go, yeah, but Eric said. So when I say to you, I kept myself out of that process, one, because I didn't really think I had much to contribute. That's a fact. But more importantly, I didn't want to get sucked into the nonsense of what goes on behind the scenes. So I just want to establish that so people understand, well, why were you in charge? And you didn't even get involved. I was involved. I just picked my battles.
Eric, do you, I know you have some piss and vinegar in you today, and I love that. But I do want to ask, are you even aware that this title change with Steve Austin and Jim Duggan was a major moment for wrestling fans to lose confidence in WCW? Were you even aware of that?
I don't know that I would agree with it now.
Well, I don't care if you agree with it. I'm just letting you know that it exists. You can deny that it exists. I know it does. You were the guy making the decisions for WCW. Who are we to argue with you? But I'm just saying a lot of people felt like Steve Austin, and hear me out on this, was a homegrown WCW talent. And he's had this phenomenal feud with Ricky Steamboat, who's a former world champion here in this organization. And they're knee deep in this storyline. And it feels like Austin, as the United States champion, he's really like about to break through to that top guy status. Like once upon a time, if you read the old, and I know this is all silliness, but this is wrestling fandom. If you read the After Mag, at the back, they had the rankings of every organization. And as silly as that is, a lot of kids grew up with the world champion and number one, the number one contender is the U.S. champion. So to a lot of wrestling fans, it felt like, hey, man, here's Steve Austin, this homegrown star who's built his way up. TV titles, tag titles, now the U.S. title. He's on his way to the main event. He's on his way to being the top guy, and he can wrestle his ass off. He's a great character, and he feels homegrown WCW. Now, we know he actually started in World Class and worked some other independents and that sort of thing, but still, he feels like a homegrown WCW talent. And now, absolutely no disrespect to Jim Duggan, but here's a star who was established 10 years prior, but he was an established, guy in WWE. And respectfully, never held the title in WWE. He wasn't the Intercontinental Champion. He wasn't the World Champion. He was there, and he was a big part of the program and a big star. But when it came to these silly things called championships, he wasn't necessarily the top guy. So when an older guy from a top organization comes in and beats this homegrown star very quickly, it turns a lot of hardcore WCW fans off. Now, I get why you did it, because Duggan is a much bigger star. We've said that many, many times here. But I think people would feel this way again years later when, say, an AJ Styles, who felt like a homegrown TNA talent, we want him to be the top guy, and now we're going to favor a bigger star. Now, I'm not saying that one way is right or wrong. Those were your decisions to make, not ours. But I am just bringing it to your attention that a lot of wrestling fans who grew up as hardcore WCW fans, they see this as, oh, this is no longer our WCW. This is WWF light.
I did. So I think you started the question out by saying, were you aware or did you even care? No. Actually, I didn't. I wasn't aware that 1/10 of 1% of my audience was so passionate about Steve at the time and felt the way you were saying they felt, which I totally accept. Not questioning that. Was I aware of that? No, because I didn't really pay attention to what 1/10 of 1% of my audience said or how they felt. Whether they loved it or whether they hated it was freaking irrelevant to me in terms of what the decision was going to be. Let's go back and break this down a little bit more. And I'm not, do I wish I had this back? Of course. Come on. I'm not gonna lie to anybody. Of course. It would be fun to be able to go back and do that again, especially with 2020 hindsight. Wow, really, it'd be a lot more fun. But in that moment, in that time in 1994, prior to Hogan coming in, where was WCW in terms of its position to WWE? It was a distant number 2.
Yes.
And I've said this a million times before I ever heard what a podcast was. We were the number 2 wrestling company in the world. We might as well have been number 222 because the distance between number 1 and number 2 was so vast. It was a laughable comment to say, we're number 2. We were flat. There was no way to build the audience. We had tried a lot of different things. I came in to try to change status quo. Now, where was Steve Austin in 92, in 93, in 94? As all of this all of his growth was taking place. Yes, he was at the top of the card. Where was WCW at that same time? Number 222. So status quo and building on a shaky foundation wasn't on my list of things to do. That wasn't this strategy that I thought would pay off. I thought bringing in bigger talent, more recognized talent from outside the fishbowl of the TBS footprint in television at that time, which was predominantly Southeast, even though it was available across the US, doesn't freaking matter. The Weather Channel is probably in more homes in the United States than any other network or cable outlet. You're going to put a primetime show on the Weather Channel and expect it to do well?
No.
So TBS, our prime show, was in the toilet. Even though Steve Austin was making forward progress in his career, he was getting better and better. His promos were getting better. He was on his way to stardom. I'll agree with everything that you said. What was the net effect? Zero. Actually, 10 million times less than zero. Well, that doesn't work either. The company was losing a fortune. $24 million in revenue, net loss of $10 million. That's where we were when I had to make a decision. Do I continue doing or build on what I've got? Or do I bring somebody in to try to raise the tide so everybody's boat floats a little higher? I signed off on that. Now, let's go to this match in particular. You described it. I can't remember the details. Steve Austin, we vacated a title. Nick Bockwinkel comes out. He makes the announcement. Yay, Steve gets a title. But you've got to defend it right now. What? I didn't get time to prepare for this. This isn't fair. I didn't sign a contract. Schmoz. Austin's distracted. He's flipping out. Hacksaw takes advantage of it. Bing, bang, boom. He sneaks up behind him, hits him with a finish. We get the win. Did he really beat Steve Austin?
No.
No, he didn't fucking beat Steve Austin. It was an angle. It got Hacksaw over because of the way it was laid out and absolutely did zero damage to Steve Austin, except in the minds of some nose-picking, dirt-sheet, pimple-faced kid that gets all upset about things that don't happen the way he or she thinks they should. That 1/10 of 1% of the audience. So when I say, did I care? No. Is there a reason why I didn't care? Yeah, I've just explained it. It didn't freaking matter. And that finish that everybody got so bent out of shape over, ruined. So WCW, we're never going to have confidence in an ability to make good decisions. Well, thank God you're nowhere near a decision. I can easily, not justify, I can easily, with a little bit of pride, and at least there was logic to it. You may not have liked it if you were downstairs in the basement popping zits watching wrestling, but it made sense on paper in that moment, in that time, given the broader context of where WCW was.
There you have it, boys and girls. Eric Bischoff. Let's talk a little bit about what's next for, well, I guess we should mention, as if that wasn't a bad enough week for Steve Austin. I don't even know that you knew this, but according to the Observer, this is funny. Not only did Austin have to put Duggan over in 30 seconds, but his house flooded the day before. Pretty shitty weekend for Mr. Steve Austin. You win the title and you lose it the same day you got it, and your fucking house floods. God damn. I'd start drinking.
I would just, it's not funny, but it would be funny if you could just find a replay of that. Like if there was that little gimmick that, records everything in your house that we have, Alexa. If you could find an Alexa that has Steve Austin from 1994 on it and just listen to the verbiage that was going on in the Steve Austin household at that time. Ugh.
It's interesting because I think this is the era where Ric Flair's still booking, and obviously Austin was a Flair guy, But as you said, and maybe this is one of those things we need to keep in mind. I mean, when we first started our conversation about Jim Duggan today, you said something along the lines of you could bet your mortgage on the response he would get. So I just want to remind everybody out there, Bruce Pritchard has said pretty loud and proud that, you know, if for some reason you can't deliver what was advertised, the replacement has to be better than. And how could you be better than Ricky the Dragon Steamboat? I don't think you can be. So maybe we need to be different than. How do we ensure people who might be disappointed that they didn't get to see Ricky Steamboat and Steve Austin have a match for the U.S. title? How do we instead find a way to make those people cheer and be happy about what they're seeing, that even if it's not exactly what was advertised? And I think the answer is, if we bring Jim Duggan out, man, the crowd's going to give us a thunderous of, he's going to get a pop coming out. So if we're concerned about not being able to deliver what was advertised, sending them home happy, knowing, hey, well, they're always going to cheer this guy and he's here and he's not booked, let's use him. That's the answer, right?
Especially if you're doing it in a way that doesn't hurt your heel.
Yes.
It absolutely did. Nobody looked at that and said, well, I don't think Steve Austin's got it. I thought he did, but he'll never make it. The fuck, people. Just, it's fascinating. I'll just let go of that.
Something else fascinating is the idea that everybody listening to this doesn't already have a Ridge wallet. I mean, what are you waiting for? Eric's rocking the Ridge, I'm rocking the Ridge, and you're not carrying around that old worn out piece of crap leather, are you? It's going to mess your back up. It's probably crusty. It's a big brick you sit on. Your back's you're going to give yourself damn scoliosis. What you need is the Ridge. It's unique. It's slim, and they've got modern designs that hold up to 12 cards plus your cash, and they're made with premium materials like aluminum, titanium, and carbon fiber. Mine's carbon fiber, and I love it. There's over 50 different colors and styles to choose from. I'm a big believer in this product, and here's why. All the Ridge products have a lifetime warranty. This is very literally the last wallet you'll ever have to buy. And I want to give you the peace of mind knowing that all Ridge wallets have RFID blocking technology. It's going to help keep you safe from digital pickpocketers. They've got over 100,000 five-star reviews, so you know Ridge is the real deal. They even offer a Ridge AirTag attachment, so you'll know exactly where your Ridge is before panic sets in. And Ridge is about a lot more than just wallets. They've got all your everyday essentials, key cases, suitcases, rings, all with the same sleek, durable design. No matter what you pick, Ridge is going to hook you up with free shipping, a 99-day risk-free trial, and of course, a lifetime warranty on all of their products. What a great company. For a limited time, our listeners can get 10% off at Ridge by using the code 83weeks at checkout. Just head on over to ridge.com and use the code 83weeks, and you're all set. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Eric, you're taking your Ridge on the road everywhere you go these days, aren't you?
I absolutely love that wallet. Absolutely love that wallet. Can't recommend it highly enough. It's actually changed my life when I travel. Because it's so much more comfortable. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I didn't realize how cockeyed I would sit on a plane when I had that fat ass wallet on my right hip. You're all cockeyed. Get off the plane. What the hell? I feel like I got hit by a small bus because I'm sitting there like this. I'm sitting on a wallet. I'm sitting on a book. You wouldn't do that watching television. You wouldn't put a book under your ass and sit there half cockeyed in your chair for 2 hours watching whatever it is you watch, would you? No, you wouldn't do that. Why would you do it with a wallet? I love it. Can't recommend it highly.
Go check it out. Ridge.com. Use that promo code 83weeks. Hey, let's talk about Halloween Havoc. This is when we get our match with Jim Duggan and Steve Austin. They get plenty of time here too. 16 minutes and 21 seconds. Maybe that's too long of a Jim Duggan match. I don't know. But it goes to a DQ. Duggan gets the win because that damn dirty cheater, Steve Austin, has knocked out Jim Duggan with a foreign object. Maybe it was an international object, now that I think about it. But it feels like he's won the title. But the ref is going to see the gimmick on the mat and reverse the decision. It gets half a star. So, yeah, I mean, Bash at the Beach, obviously a huge pay-per-view. Fall Brawl, a huge pay-per-view, and now here we are at Halloween Havoc. Little do we know it's going to be Ric Flair's retirement match. Wink, wink. Duggan in Austin, 16 minutes and 21 seconds. It was snug, if nothing else, wasn't it?
I would imagine everything would, because he's a tough bastard.
Yes.
Now he's older, like we all are now. So those, tough guy days are way in the rearview mirror. But in his heyday, in particular, early in his career, and even at this point in time, Hacksaw's one of those guys. He's got a fist the size of a small Samsonite suitcase. I mean, if he wants to lay him in, he's going to lay him in. He's a strong, powerful guy. And Steve's a tough dude. He can take it, he can give it, and he can have fun doing it. So I would imagine that would have been real fun to be in the ring with that one.
I do want to mention around this time, your great close personal friend Dave Meltzer went to a house show in Oakland. It's a WCW house show. And he was reporting that by and large, the fans that were there were WWF fans. Nasty Boys were getting a big reaction. Honky Tonk Man was getting a big reaction. And even Jim Duggan received a huge reaction. And it's even written here. This was exemplified by the fact that Duggan got far more of a reaction and sustained heat than Sting. Now, Sting, of course, is the number one well-established franchise of WCW. However, when you're running house shows on the West Coast, they're more excited about Duggan than Sting. Crazy like a fox you might be, Mr. Bischoff.
Yeah. See, Dave, that's how it works. That's how this business worked then, and that's how it works now. Nothing's changed. The way you do it has changed, but the idea is still the same. If you want to grow your audience, now if you don't, that's a different story.
The Observer would report in October, Sherry managed Steve Austin at the Disney tapings, and Austin was picking up more of the Flair mannerisms. Word we got is that Austin originally, when doing the job for Duggan at Fall Brawl, was promised the belt back at the last pay-per-view. But guess who overruled the committee? Now he's being told they're grooming him as the next Flair with Sherry to copy his mannerisms, leading to work against a face Flair next year. Now, before we talk about all the Flair stuff, the Observer's printing this sort of matter of fact. Word we got is that when Austin originally did the job at Fall Brawl, he was promised the belt back at the next pay-per-view. Now, we just laid that out, that Halloween Havoc was actually a DQ, and technically Duggan retains, even though it did look like Austin was going to be the winner. The referee overturned it. But when it's written like this, guess who overruled the committee? The implication is that it's Hulk Hogan. I wasn't there. I don't know. But I find it hard to believe that Hulk Hogan gave a shit about who the U.S. champion was.
Absolutely did not. That was, that is an example of why I feel the way I feel about Dave Meltzer.
Okay.
It just made it up. No. Did somebody tell him that? Did somebody who spoke to him on a regular basis that wanted to fade the heat?
Right.
Tell Dave that? I believe that.
Sure.
Because I know for a fact that Dave Meltzer wouldn't bother to find out the truth. He'd just go with it. He'd take his cookie, put his head down, so whoever it was could pat him on the head and say, hey, you're a good guy. I like you. You're my friend. I'll go write what I just told you. That's the transaction.
Let's talk about Steve Austin being managed by Sherry here, supposedly getting ready for a Flair feud. Would you have liked to have seen Sherry on screen with Austin? That could have been fun.
Oh, hell yeah. As you were describing that just now, because I didn't remember it, two of the most entertaining personalities on a wrestling show at that time, potentially. I mean, those two together, first of all, Steve, and I didn't know it then, obviously. And again, I wasn't booking then. I wasn't involved in creative then. I'm really looking at this, okay, more on a business side, as we just discussed with Hacksaw and the response in California. So I was making moves that were more tactical, strategic, I should say, in the longer run, trying to grow the audience. But when it came to creative, I really was on the outside looking in and more as a fan than anything else. And just the idea, because Sherry was so entertaining. And even then I knew Steve had the potential. I mean, I loved working with Steve back then. I worked with Steve a lot on pre-tapes and things like that. So I was very familiar with Steve as a performer with him at that time. That was nothing but great potential, kind of like Robert Parker was. You just know. You don't have to be really that good in the business to figure out who's entertaining and who's not.
There's a taping going at Center Stage, and that's where Austin does an interview on October 25th. And he says he's got a surprise for Jim Duggan at the Clash. And I think we all assume, based on the Disney tapings, that the surprise is going to be Sherry as his manager. Now, if you're wondering, hey, why don't I remember that? Because it never aired on TV. It didn't happen. Sherry wound up being introduced as the manager for the Harlem Heat. And that wasn't the plan at the time. Harlem Heat had done some stuff with Johnny Attitude doing a Paulie Dangerously knockoff gimmick. But ultimately, what we see on camera is Sherry with Heat. But in an alternate universe, Sherry with Austin, that could have been fun.
Sherry was really good with Harlem Heat.
Oh, yeah.
That was definitely a great combination. She brought a lot of added value to the equation, no question. I think it would have been at least equal to, if not potentially more than, with Steve Austin, just because of the nature of their personalities and the chemistry. That sounds like a Ric Flair thing to me. The original, hey, we're going to put you, Steve, we're going to put you with Sherry. That sounds very, and build you for an angle with me. That sounds very Ric Flair, and I like it. It could have been awesome had it happened, but yeah, her with he was good. I think her with Austin would have been great.
Let's talk a little bit about Clash of the Champions. We're going to see Duggan and Steve Austin here go 58 seconds. And this is another short match, but this time it's because Austin actually blew his knee out on a Sarasota show. He's here limping pretty badly. And it's written, for numerous reasons, there were many skeptics about the injury. Vader immediately charged the ring for a DQ, and Duggan grabbed the 2x4 and made his own save. A really lame angle. Dud. Listen, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. Do you remember there being speculation that Austin may not have been injured, but he might not have just been thrilled with the idea of working with Duggan again? Or is this all news to you today?
News to me. Yeah. I would. Steve was not the kind of guy to do. Steve would come up to you and say, "No, I'm not fucking doing it."
Right.
He'll do that. But he's not going to fake an injury. That's a chicken shit move, and Steve Austin was not a chicken shit.
Well said. Roll Tide on that. Of course, I am going to ask you about Vader, because Vader is going to be the guy ultimately to take the U.S. title off of Duggan. Do you remember? Is there any chance you remember? Was the plan always to wind up with Vader, or does the Steamboat injury throw a monkey wrench into everything?
I can only speculate. I would imagine that it threw a big monkey wrench into things, but make chicken salad out of chicken shit, and going with Vader would have been a great alternative. I mean, whatever the original plan was, this plan was a good plan. Vader was the guy, and everybody knew it.
I want to read you some quotes here from the Torch and the Observer. Whether it's fair or not, I want to get your response. Wade wrote, Duggan's push has built resentment amongst, let me start over. It's early morning. Duggan's push has built resentment against him among other WCW wrestlers who feel he is totally underqualified for his recent push and is displacing them from the spotlight. A few weeks later, Dave would write, there's tremendous heat among many, if not most of the old crew, obviously on the push given to the new guys, Jim Duggan in particular. Now, this is what we're reading in the Observer. Were you hearing any of this in real life at this point?
Nope.
Not one bit.
And here's the more important part. I was backstage.
Yes.
Now, granted, I was the boss, or one of them. So people are going to, be a little more careful about what they do and say than they were when I was the potted plant. But you can sense the vibe. You can see the interaction. You don't even have to be a part of a conversation. You can be 50 feet away and see the reaction and the chemistry between people. If there's heat, you know it. It's bullshit. There was probably one or two people that brought cookies to Dave and pat him on the head that was trying to create their own headlines to stir up the shit, as they say backstage, so that perhaps they could create an opportunity for themselves. So sure, create chaos. That's the best way to do it, right? We've all seen that. Wrestling locker rooms were famous for it. But I didn't see it because I don't think it existed. It only existed in a small number of people that like to, give out cookies.
It's interesting because we're talking about what a big pop that he gets on the live events, and at the house shows, he's even getting bigger and better reactions than Sting. But by December of 94, WCW Saturday Night is having some trouble with the ratings. Here's what the Torch wrote. WCW is coming off their lowest rated edition of WCW Saturday Night in its history. Since debuting on the local Georgia station in 1975, all the way through the growth of the superstation TBS, never has WCW Saturday Night dipped to a 1.8 as low as it did on November 27th. The headline match of Hacksaw Duggan versus Steve Austin wasn't an especially weak main event, but perhaps the rating confirms the public's interest in Duggan is long since over. Or maybe the inconsistency of the Saturday ratings says something much more. Now, of course, it's never good or realistic or even fair to take a look at a single show's rating in isolation. But when you do have a historically bad rating, like the worst in the history of TBS, do you take a look at that card and wonder what's going on here? Or do you just say it's an anomaly, it's around the holidays, whatever, let's move on?
I'm checking something real quick so I can answer that with precision. I'm not being rude or dismissive.
Sure.
It was Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
But it certainly makes good copy.
Well, hang on now. I appreciate you saying that, which is why I said it was the holiday season. But historically, this same company had their biggest night of the year on Thanksgiving night. I know that was a few years prior to this. I'm not arguing that. But I am just saying Starrcade, and even not just WCW and the NWA, but historically, Thanksgiving night was a major wrestling ticket night for every territory. So I don't know necessarily that is a bad thing, but I guess I was trying to drive at, did you view this as a cause for concern? And your response tells me not really.
No.
Got it.
Nope.
The Observer.
Was I, would I want it to be higher? Of course. But was I concerned? Those are two different things. And the hyperbolic, coverage of it, bro, it's the lowest rating in history or whatever. And all just, headlines attract attention. That's what they're designed to do. They're designed to stop you thinking about what you're thinking and think about what you're reading or react to what you're reading. That's why they exist. That's why there are people who specialize in nothing but headlines, which may or may not have really any direct connection to the story that you're really reporting. But the headlines get your attention and cause you to engage. That's what this is on a very, low level.
I do want to ask you about something that's written in the Observer here. This comes out or after Starrcade. So that's obviously the biggest show of the year. I know you said it was Halloween Havoc. For fans, I think they perceived it to be Starrcade, at least in 94. But it's written here, Honky Tonk Man and Jim Duggan are on a $1,000 per match deal rather than a guaranteed yearly salary. And we're told coming in that nobody was going to get guaranteed big money deals as in the past, and felt misled because then Randy Savage got such a deal. So I know we've spent a lot of time talking about the Slim Jim sponsorship, and we've covered all that in the archives. So we don't have to debate the facts of what really did happen. I'm really more interested in, do you remember hearing heartburn or belly aching from Honky Tonk Man or Jim Duggan about Randy Savage coming in?
No.
Okay.
Jim would have never done it, and I don't think Honky would have either. I mean, I don't know Hunky. Well, I never got to know him well enough nor wanted to. But I do know Jim well enough. Jim would never do that. That's not who he is. Were there some people that were butthurt? Sure.
It's natural.
It's human nature.
Yes.
These guys are coming in, they're getting a bigger pop, they're getting a bigger push, and they're making more money than me. Yeah, it's true. That's how this shit works, people. It's the entertainment business. But I don't remember it. I'm still not signing off that I was only paying Jim $1,000 a night. That must have been temporary, because I do remember getting him his contract. I think I've maybe even more than one. So he may have started on a nightly. I just don't remember. I just don't think so.
I mean, hang on now. You're not suggesting that perhaps Dave got something wrong here, are you?
He may have. He may not have. I'm just being honest. Unlike Dave Meltzer, I'm being very honest and admitting I don't fucking know. I don't remember. It's a little detail.
I was busting balls. Hey, so let's talk about Starrcade. Vader's going to win the U.S. title from Jim Duggan. It takes 12 minutes and 6 seconds. Dave is clearly not a Jim Duggan fan. He gave it a 1.5 stars, said that Duggan looked terrible, blah, blah, blah. The Torch, though, gave the match 3.25 stars. He really liked it and said it was the best match of the show and therefore the surprise of the show. I really do think this is important to know, because we historically have covered more of Dave Meltzer's reporting than Wade Keller's. And I'm a fan of Dave's. I consider him a friend, really value the work he's done. I know you feel completely differently than I do, but I do think every now and again, his bias and his taste comes into play. And again, he said right up front, hey, my star ratings are just my opinion. But when Dave goes 1.5 stars and says things like Duggan's offense looks terrible, but then Wade goes best match of the show, therefore surprise of the show, 3.25 stars. I mean, I know we all have our biases, but that's what this is, right? He just didn't like Duggan.
You see it in everything he does, Conrad. If one is honest about it, Dave's entire view of the world is biased. He lives in his own head. His world is not like everybody else's world. And his comments are all they're all him. They're not based in fact. They're not objective. He doesn't research. He doesn't get both sides of a story. He just spews whatever he believes is important, whether it's true or not.
I want to give everybody a heads up that Jim Duggan tore his hamstring in 1987. And if you watch his matches prior to that tear, the dude is a fucking machine. He's a beast. And we saw a little bit of that guy in this Vader match. So I'm going to recommend, if you're going to watch one match to celebrate the good times of Jim Duggan in WCW, go out of your way to watch Starrcade 94, him and Vader. When you think about Jim Duggan outside of WWF, I always think of him in Mid-South as one of Bill Watts' top guys, just a tough, rugged, kick-ass, badass, brawling monster. And that's who came to wrestle Vader that day. And so I know that there was a cartoon presentation, tough guy, and 2x4s and American flags. And that was the Vince McMahon thing that made him all famous. But what Jim Duggan was really capable of doing bell to bell, even with a little bit of age on him and some bumps along the road. I mean, he's beat up pretty good here after working all that time with a crazy WWF schedule where they were sometimes wrestling 250, 300 times a year. And so for him to go out there with a big bully like Vader and have a match like this, that's a testament to who Jim Duggan was the whole time. He just did what was necessary, right?
He did, and he did it well. He was honorable, shot straight all the time, and he was tough. I guarantee, careful what I say, I would be shocked if Vader going into that match, if he wasn't thinking to himself, I better respect this individual, because Jim could bring it. And Vader knew that. I mean, Vader was a big, tough, powerful, not taking anything away from Leon White at all.
Right.
I just think game recognizes game, and Vader knew that Jim was the real deal. So there was a lot of mutual respect going on in that match. I don't recall it. I'm going to go back and watch it because now I'm curious to see if I'm right. And you can tell by watching the match where their heads are at. But I'm just going to take a wild ass guess and say Vader came to that match with a lot of respect for Jim Duggan.
The last match that they worked together, Jim Duggan and Vader, it happened on March 12th, 1995 at the Denver Coliseum. It was a house show, and I hate that there's no footage of it, or at least I've never seen it. I can't imagine WCW filmed it and it's somewhere in the archives. But if WWE Vault posts it, I'd love to see it. Because Dave Meltzer does a bit of an about face here, and he says, Jim Duggan had what I'm told is his best match since joining the group, working with Vader in Denver. That's near Vader's home in Boulder on March 12th. Vader got most of the cheers and seemed to be the one who drew the crowd of 3,400 going wild, making it a great match. The crowd was about 1,000 people more there than the WWF drew the previous Sunday in Denver. I just think it's interesting that Dave Meltzer, who clearly has not been a fan of Vader, goes out of Duggan, goes out of his way to praise his match here with Vader, and it's a house show. So further evidence, folks, go watch the footage that does exist of Vader and Duggan from Starrcade 1994. And by the way, while you're out there, let me recommend, if you're a small business owner, you check out my guys at conradsguy.com. If you're really trying to grow some business, yes, you could bring in the Honky Tonk Man, and you could bring in the Bushwhackers, and you could bring in Jim Duggan, or you could go to conradsguy.com, because that's where Eric Nichols is going to show you how to buy digital media better. I'm talking to you. If you're a small business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're really trying to grow your business, do what I did, because I had to pay some stupid tax. You see, 15 years ago, I started advertising on TV and radio. Hell, I even bought some billboard, and everyone kept telling me I needed to buy digital, but I didn't even know what that meant. So I placed an order with the radio station and the TV station. They took my money, but I got no leads. I made no money. It was a waste of time. And I thought, I'll never do that again. And then I met Eric Nichols, and he understood what I needed. My understanding of the space went up. My leads went up. My cost per lead went down. I was more profitable because I met Eric Nichols, and you will be too. And if your company is doing SEO or pay-per-click or targeted display, or maybe even streaming ads on things like Hulu or YouTube or Amazon, I want my guy to take a look for you. Go right now to conradsguy.com and let my buddy Eric take a look. He and his team have decades of experience, but most importantly, I trust they're staying on top of the technology and optimizing my campaigns, because that's a full-time job, man. We've all heard the buzzword, the algorithm. Well, man, that thing changes not yearly or quarterly or monthly or weekly, but daily and freaking hourly. How can you stay on top of that to make sure that you're getting the most out of your advertising spend and really be effective and at your best running your business? You can't. So you need to phone a friend. Call my guy, conradsguy.com, and I'm talking to you. If you're B2B or retail or food and beverage or manufacturing, nonprofits, dude, if he can help me with mortgages, he can help you too. Go right now to conradsguy.com. Let my buddy Eric and his team take a look. And if they think you're on the right track, they'll tell you that. But it's worth a few minutes it'll take just to know you've got the peace of mind and your money is being spent as well as it can be. Go to conradsguy.com. Check out Envision Marketing Consultants, where smart but simple marketing drives results. So let's talk about the next match, that's next for Duggan. I guess before we do that, we should mention there was a fun angle where he's going to be in the ring with Ming. And when you think about the former Haku and Hacksaw Jim Duggan being in the confines of a WCW ring with a 2x4, you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. They're going to hit Ming with the 2x4. And they do. And supposedly it's an awesome angle, but it never airs on TV because I guess the Turner brass thought there was a concern over violence. Now, this is also the same organization that once told you guys something like, hey, we can't call it a foreign object. That's discriminatory. We need to call it an international object, which was fucking stupid. But either way, 2x4 violence. Do you remember that being an issue with Turner in 1995?
I do not. I do not remember that. It doesn't seem plausible to me. Not saying it absolutely didn't happen, because I honestly would have to really, really think hard and go back. spend some time on it. But Turner wasn't making those kinds of calls in 1995. I mean, that international thing, that was a company-wide mandate, by the way. That wasn't a WCW thing. If you work for Turner Broadcasting, Turner Sports, Turner Classic Movies, whatever, any division of Turner, if you walked into the CNN Center and you had a Turner ID on, and you use the word foreign, you would be chastised by your supervisor.
My God.
That was just 10. So it wasn't a WCW thing. And as far as violence, did I get, from time to time, pressure on me about blood? Yeah, we covered that. And yes. And sometimes it would be a lot of pressure, and sometimes it would be wink, wink, depending on what was going on.
Right.
But never when it came to, using props in a match. Not at that time.
I want to mention, as silly as this sounds, the WWF had just dealt with this, where they had Jerry Lawler hit Duke Drosay over the head with a metal garbage can on Raw. And Jerry Lawler had to apologize in character because there was this pressure about violence on television. And we're just, it feels like days away, or maybe this is knee deep in the Jerry Springer era. So it's interesting that we can't have violence on a wrestling show. Isn't that what it's supposed to be? Either way, let's talk about Uncensored 95, and nobody got fired after this one. Ming is going to be wrestling Jim Duggan, and I know this had to be number one on your list of ideas for Jim Duggan, a martial arts match. A martial arts match. Were you coaching up Jim Duggan on how to throw those kicks and get your timing right? I can see you really going through the paces. I can imagine in my mind's eye, you were like the fucking Mr. Miyagi with Jim Duggan. And you got him out there on the beach and you're teaching him your crane technique. And he's catching the fucking flies with the...
And when I told him the whole wax on, wax off thing, he took the wax off thing way out of context, almost got arrested. It was a beach in Daytona. I said, no, your car.
He wanted to over-deliver for you, boss. He wanted to over-deliver. They go 7 minutes and 4 seconds, and here's what the Observer said. Eric Bischoff's best friend, confidant, and sometimes interpreter, Sonny Ono, served as referee, doing a heel Japanese gimmick. They tried to set it up like it was a karate-style match, except I've never heard of pinfalls in karate. This is one of the worst matches of all time. Tons of stalling early. Ming mainly used nerve holds when Duggan wasn't making comebacks, with some of the most pitiful looking offense of all time. Duggan looked much worse than usual, which I didn't even think was possible. The finish saw Duggan use the spear on Ming, who popped back up since they're trying to push him as a monster. Duggan then began pounding on Colonel Robert Parker as the referee grabbed Duggan's arm from punching, leaving him outstretched. Ming delivered a thrust kick for the pin. -2 stars. We've had a lot of fun talking about Uncensored. I mean, just when you see Ming versus Jim Duggan with Sonny Ono in a martial arts match, it does make me want to go watch it because it feels like something someone booked on acid. I mean, is this when Kevin Sullivan maybe had the cosmic cookie, or what are we doing here?
Every once in a while, I'll be flipping through the channels on a weekend. If there's nothing on, I want to watch some sports or anything interesting. I'll stumble across like these old Westerns from the 40s and the 50s, and they're so bad, they're actually entertaining. They're so ridiculous that they actually hold my attention, and I'll sit and watch 2 or 3 of them back to back. It's crazy. That's what this match is. It's exactly what this is, a comedy spot without intentionally being created as a comedy spot.
And by the way, I'm for it. Every now and again, you got to have something fun and different. And Uncensored was that. I think people maybe took it too seriously at times, but let's remember, this is the same show where we got 2 guys wrestling on the back of a fucking flatbed truck. It's supposed to be entertaining.
Branding.
Yes, there you go. As a reminder, I think this is fun. You and I've never talked about this, but this is worth pointing out. Sonny Ono is your low-key MVP here. And I know that Eric Bischoff is being criticized here when Dave writes, Eric Bischoff's best friend, confidant, and sometimes interpreter. I mean, when he starts with best friend, it feels like, oh, this is the buddy gig. but you use Sonny in a lot of different ways. Like during the same calendar year, over the course of 8 months, Sonny Ono appears as 4 different characters. He's the karate champion here as Mr. Ono. The following month, he's going to be attending Ric Flair's reinstatement when it's put in front of the WCW board of the directors. And there his first name is Kensuke and his last name is like Ishikawa or something like that. But he's the Japanese representative who's supposed to be there. And then in August, he's doing the Collision in Korea pay-per-view. And there he's going to be a heel wrestling expert, again, using a totally different name. And then finally, he shows up as a representative of the New Japan Pro Wrestling character or organization in November. So you've used him in a variety of ways. I mean, this guy's got more alias. This is like a sitcom. We should do a Sonny Ono show. That dude's got to be one of the most low-key interesting dudes in the history of wrestling that nobody talks about.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Can you imagine?
But too, that's what people, he's Eric's best friend. Okay, he's one of my best friends. Confidant? Nah, I don't know where that came from. I've never had one, so I don't know. That would be interesting. And Sonny was capable. He was a great character. It took him a while to find, what worked best for him, but he was a great manager. But as a martial artist, I mean, he was like the number 2 rated professional in the Professional Karate Association. This is before UFC, back in about 77 or 78. That's when I met him, 76. He was a legitimate badass. Now, he was a bantamweight, so, only go so far, but sorry, son, it's true. It's true. But he was legit. It just took a while for him to find his character. It's kind of like Steve Austin. He didn't come out of the chute stone cold. Took him a while to find it. Took us a while to find Sonny's character. And he was fun to work with. And, with New Japan, that was really the reason I had him there, was really to help me manage the relationship with New Japan. The rest of the stuff was just fun. And some of it worked.
I do want to mention that there's a report in the newsletters that says, and this is according to Wade Keller, Duggan was upset over having to do the job for Ming. He resents that Flair never returned his phone calls when he was looking for work. But as soon as Hulk Hogan arrived, Duggan was hired immediately. Do you think there were some hurt feelings between Ric Flair and Jim Duggan? Because this is a weird spot for people to be in. Like, I'm sure you've had this happen a lot. I mean, people reach out looking for work, and if you're not in a position to give them work, what are you supposed to say? So if you don't call them back and you don't call and say, hey, sorry, I'm no help, then they view it like you're big leaguing them. Rick, could he have even hired Jim Duggan?
Probably.
Okay. Well, fuck Rick then,
Well, possibly or possibly not. It's, I don't know where we were, when I don't know, when was Hacksaw calling Rick? When was that? I don't know.
Right.
It's not clear in this conversation. So is it possible that Hacksaw felt disrespected? Sure. Absolutely. That happens all the time, especially if you were one of the boys. Now you're one of the boys that's running a company and making decisions. I think people would probably have more of an expectation in terms of at least a callback. Someone calls me, I'm not one of the boys, they'll be disappointed that I didn't call back, but I don't think they would feel disrespected. Different when you're a Dusty Rhodes or a Ric Flair and you're in that spot, or even a Kevin Sullivan at the time.
Hey, I want to mention too, we've been talking about Jim Duggan here, and it's written in the Observer and the Torch where guys are talking about, maybe they're not necessarily saying it, but they're almost implying, oh, he's old. Do you want to guess how old Jim Duggan was when he came to WCW?
42.
40. Yeah.
Times have changed, haven't they?
Oh, I mean, here we are. We're acting like, oh, he's so over the hill. He's 41. He's not old at all.
Wow.
Let's talk about Great American Bash 1995. Here's the review from Dave Meltzer. Behind the scenes, the show wasn't nearly as smooth as it appeared on camera. As expected, Bagwell's leg infection caused Jim Duggan to replace him for the international amateur star Craig Pittman's first career major show match. But that's not really the big story. I mean, obviously that is a cool moment for Craig Pittman. They go 8 minutes and 13 seconds. Duggan gets the win. It's rated a dud rating. Fans are chanting USA, and both of these guys are USA guy. Whatever. Still, it was a passable match. Didn't get very favorable ratings. I think it got a dud rating. It is what it is. But this wasn't the original plan. But what was interesting about this show is Alex Marvez, who these days works with AEW, but back then was a writer for the Miami Herald. I guess someone leaked the finishes to him, and he gave away the finishes in his newspaper article.
Dirty bastard.
And they were 100% spot on.
Dirty cool. How could anybody do that? How could any self-respecting human being give away a finish to somebody else's project, somebody else's show, somebody else's livelihood? My God, I feed my family with this business. I'm giving my body. Oh my God, it's horrible. You dirty dog.
Now, Eric, I asked this to you because this is June of 95, and we know you're just a couple of months away from starting Nitro. It's written here in the Observer that Flair is so pissed thinking that this has been leaked, and maybe it wasn't leaked. Maybe he just guessed, because it's not like all these finishes are tough to guess. That Flair wanted to, allegedly, according to the Observer, change some finishes just so Marvez's article wouldn't be 100% accurate, to sort of protect the business. When I read that sort of thing, and I don't know if it was true, you were there, it makes me wonder, did you see that? What the chaos created backstage was like when you felt like there was a spoiler published, and say to yourself, because it's a few months later you start dusting this off on Nitro and doing it to Vince for Raw. Is this sort of the inspiration for you giving those spoilers?
Could have been, right?
Yeah, could have. The timeline is there.
Could have been.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like, it's still one of the most fascinating things that occurred to me as a result of doing this show. For years, I would tell a story about how the NWO thing just rolled off my tongue, and it kind of made me go, where the fuck did that come from? But it worked, and it did, and it stuck. For years, I just went, wow, I don't know, just happened. Something I read. I do read a lot of history at that time or prior. I did read a lot of history, so political history in particular. So maybe I thought, maybe I got it from that. No, Larry Zbyszko said it on camera months before, whatever it was, weeks before. I don't remember the time.
Yeah.
And I don't remember hearing it, but clearly I did. It's the only explanation, because I don't know where I would have got it any other place. So this may be another one of those situations where, I don't remember me going, you know what? I've got a brilliant idea. I'm going to give away their finishes. I don't remember that. It just happened. Probably, possibly, because of Alex Marvez. Blame him.
How about that? We got to the bottom of it, boys and girls. So if you've ever been pissed off at Eric Bischoff for giving away Raw spoilers, send your hate tweets to Alex Marvez. We'll pin it on him. Let's talk about what's next here with, maybe not next, but it is some bad news, but it is a major story with a happy ending. Come the fall of 1998, Jim Duggan is diagnosed with cancer. And unfortunately, he's going to have one of his kidneys removed on September 4th. And there have been athletes in other sports who have performed at, the major league level with one kidney. But you think, man, in pro wrestling with the bumping and falling, and he's obviously a heavyweight at 45, I think most people assumed this is going to be the end of his in-ring career. But that doesn't wind up being the case. And of course, before we talk about the return, I guess there was some discussion, at least according to the Observer, about perhaps having Duggan do an interview about his legit situation, just to communicate that with the fans and garner some support. But I guess there's a report that says that was nixed by higher ups, not wanting to overshadow the angles on the show. And let's keep the show to be entertainment, and let's not sort of mix a real situation or circumstance. First of all, how do you receive the news that Duggan has cancer and is going to have a kidney removed? And secondly, do you remember this discussion about should we or shouldn't we do a sit down interview with him for this?
Absolutely don't remember. Therefore, I don't think there was ever a discussion of should we or should we, at least not in the context of we don't want it to overshadow. My brain has never worked that way. And by this time, my fingers are in the pot. I'm getting more involved. That would have if it made it to me. Now, if somebody made that decision before it got to me, I'll accept that. I don't know if it's true or not, but since I don't know it's not true, I'll accept it as a possibility. But as far as me making the decision or having been a part of a conversation that sounded like, should we bring real life and legitimate sympathy to a beloved character in a 2-minute interview on a wrestling show? No, Eric, we shouldn't do that because it'll overshadow everything else. Leave the room. You're no longer a part of this process. No, I would have done that in a minute. Now, there may have been another reason that I don't know of. Possibly, we're guessing here, but there was never a conversation of should we or shouldn't we as it relates to anything on the rest of the show. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. How did I receive that information? I think we were either in Disney or right before Disney is when I got the word. And I only say that because I remember just like a flash of a moment, and I feel like it was in a soundstage when somebody brought me the news. And it probably would have been Janie Engel.
We know that ultimately Duggan doesn't really do a sit-down, long-form interview, but he does get to address the crowd on Thunder. He's there in a polo, addressing the audience, and he's just talking about the old days, and he's talking about how he needs your support. He's going under the knife this week, and God willing, the cancer will be removed. But he wants you to do a favor for me. I don't want to leave my little girls alone. Say a prayer for me and my family. And he's telling the fans that he loves them. He's thanking the fans. The crowd's giving him a big USA chant. I mean, even if you weren't necessarily a fan of Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the wrestling persona, how could you not love Jim Duggan in a moment like this, right?
And if you met Jim Duggan, whether you were a fan of his Hacksaw Jim Duggan character, like so many millions of people were early on, or perhaps by the mid-90s, you weren't. But if you met the guy, if you were lucky enough, even to this day, to meet him at an autograph signing or just talk to him in a restaurant, you'd be better for it. You'd be glad you did. He's a good man.
I want to ask you, like, when you find out that one of your beloved guys like this has cancer, I mean, obviously that wasn't the plan. I mean, hey, well, if so-and-so happens or if this happens, but there's a report that says that you guys are still going to continue to use and employ Duggan to make personal appearances and on-sale dates and just be more like a PR person as an ambassador role. That's a no-brainer for Duggan, don't you think?
Yep. And I believe
your
that's what
call?
we did. Pretty sure that's what we did. I would have never cut somebody or suspended them, or in fact, if anything, I would have made sure they got paid. I would have made absolutely certain they were getting paid.
When we get to Fall Brawl in 1998, Shivani would announce on the air that Hacksaw Duggan's wife called to say that Duggan had surgery and the doctors think they removed the entire cancerous tumor. And doctors tell her that the tumor was the size of a football. So given a tumor that big and the idea that it's cancerous and just the idea that it's something as serious as kidney cancer, it's easy to see why people were nervous for Jim. As it is, he only winds up missing 8 months. And I can't even imagine, wrestling after that. But he does. He comes back in April of 99. And he's kind of just going to pick up where he's left off. I am curious, if you had it to do over again, would you have done more with his return after? I mean, you've said earlier, with the benefit of hindsight, maybe I wouldn't have done the Austin Hacksaw thing just like that in 94. But when Duggan comes back in April of 99, this feels like a layup for a big feel-good story. But WCW was just
it was a mess.
Yes. It was a missed opportunity, though, to not do more with Duggan, right?
Massive missed opportunity, because that's a feel-good story. That's a redemption story. That's a story that can touch everybody with two sets of eyes and a set of ears. It was a missed opportunity. No doubt about it.
Instead, what we get, as you may recall, is when Russo takes over, we get Duggan presented with a lot less dignity, maybe. We see Russo having him scrub toilets on TV. Duggan's going to find the television title in a garbage can, and he's going to make himself champion that way. And, well, he'll exclusively defend the belt on WCW Saturday Night. And then for some reason that I'll never really quite understand, Duggan joins Lance Storm's Team Canada. It does feel like Russo presented Duggan more as a comedy character. Fair to say?
No doubt about it. Disrespectful comedy character. And let me take that back. The whole toilet thing, it's almost a Vince McMahon trope, that kind of presentation. And that's where Russo came from. That's really where his head was at. He was more of a, he wanted to be the he wanted to be the Howard Stern of wrestling. So anything that he could do to, in his own way, shock the audience was fair game. It might have been a little more personal with Duggan for Russo at the time. This is the first time Russo's had any real power. He's just been a, staff writer, lead writer, staff writer, whatever. You work under Vince McMahon, you're not lead anything. You're just on the team. And now Russo's got an opportunity to be the big dog. He's never had it before. So he gets to play in this, childlike sandbox that he calls his imagination, and this is what he came up with.
Man, what could have been Jim Duggan in WCW? We know what a monster star he was before he came to the WWF. He gets to the bright lights of Vince McMahon's New York-based promotion and becomes a household name. He had a lot of fun and some major moments, but more importantly, a major battle, the battle for his life. He came out the other side. I'm so happy that Duggan made a full recovery, and he's still making appearances left and right. You can catch Duggan in a town near you. And as a matter of fact, you never know who might show up at StarCast. That's STARRCAST.com. We're about a month away, and we're going to have a who's who of legends and some of the top stars of AEW. You can go grab yourself a bracelet and join me and some of my friends on July 11th and 12th, just a couple of blocks away from Globe Life Field, where AEW is going to run their very first stadium show here in America. It's at the Sheraton, and it's going to be a who's who of professional wrestling. I think you'll have some fun. Come join us. STARRCAST.com. Meet and greets start going on sale this week. Eric, I love talking about Jim Duggan because I know what a great guy he is behind the scenes. I think I've only met him in passing once, but he's done appearances at even the minor league baseball stadium in Huntsville. And man, everybody I know who worked that event or was around that event just goes on and on about what a great class act he is. I'm saying all that to say, if you have a chance to see Jim Duggan at an autograph or a wrestling convention, a Comic-Con or a horror convention, whatever, go out of your way to see Mr. and Mrs. Duggan. I think they make all their travels together too. It's a sweet thing to see people traveling together in their elder years, isn't it?
It is, and they're having a blast. I mean, Jim Duggan is a success story. In terms of sports entertainment, Jim Duggan is probably one of the greater success stories because he's happy. His wife been married for a long time. They travel together. They have true joy when they travel. I've been with them, and they've come out to the house. We've had steaks with him here in Cody, and I watch him interact and his wife with other people. They're living the dream, really. They've got a beautiful home. I think it's in North or South Carolina. But I've seen pictures of the home. It's kind of like something that I probably want to live in if I was on the East Coast, kind of a cabin vibe out in the country, raising chickens and goats or whatever. I mean, they've got an awesome life together, and a great family. And if you can spend your career in any form of entertainment, but particular sports entertainment, and end up like that, you won. You won. And they're both winners. Love them to death. Great people.
I can't wait for us to hook up with Jim Duggan in the future. In the meantime, by the way, if you want to save some cash, can I recommend savewitheric.com? You've heard me talking about credit card debt. Man, it's out of control. You can even see it's at $1.21 trillion at the end of January. Think about that. And according to the Federal Reserve in New York, 60% of credit card holders are carrying a credit card balance. That's especially scary when you realize that the average credit card rate right now is 23%. So what's the solution? If you start making your minimum payments, man, it could take years for you to pay it off. And in the meantime, you're getting ripped off 23% at best. Well, right now, there's a lot of economic uncertainty for everyone here in the United States. But one thing we feel pretty confident about is that the solution is in your house. If you have more month at the end of the money, we need to flip that around for you. You need more money at the end of the month. And savewitheric.com can help, because we're going to show you how to leverage your equity in your house to knock out some of your debt. We did exactly that with our man Bo right here in Alabama. He had some unexpected vehicle expenses, multiple vehicles being a pain in his neck, costing him left and right. These are unplanned expenses. So he needed a way to figure all this out. We hooked him up. We gave him the tools he needed. And I want to say this too. You don't need to feel ashamed if you're overwhelmed with your debt, or maybe you've gotten behind. Maybe you've been 30 days late here or there. Maybe you had a bankruptcy a few years ago. Dude, that doesn't matter. We're here to help. Everybody's got stuff, and that's what all this is. But when you've got stuff, you need to know who to call. And that's us at savewitheric.com. You'll be working with Eric Bischoff, because here's what we were able to help Bo do. We were able to show him how to consolidate some debt and go ahead and skip his next 2 house payments. We even showed him how to get more affordable homeowners insurance. I mean, just that alone saved him over $200 a month. Go find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewitheric.com. You'll be working directly with Eric, and there's no cost, there's no obligation. And if Eric can't help you save money, he won't waste your time. It costs nothing to look. But I want to speak to you if you've been on the fence because you've got one of those great low rates you locked down during COVID. It's what we call the year 3 guarantee. You see, experts seem to agree that interest rates are going to fall in the next few years, but you don't want to miss out on that. But you don't want to overpay right now. I mean, just resigning yourself to saying, hey, I know I'm paying too much right now, but I'll just keep doing that for an undetermined amount of time and hope it gets better. Not the best strategy. Let's start saving as much money as we can today on our monthly payments. And then when rates fall in the next couple of years, give us a call back. We'll refinance you again with no new lender fees. So it gives you the peace of mind of knowing you got the best deal for your family right now without wasting money later on a second set of closing costs. So lock in a better monthly payment today. Wouldn't it be nice to keep more of your own money? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewitheric.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender, savewitheric.com. And I got to tell you, I'm looking forward to next week, Eric, because you and I are going to do something we haven't done in a long time. We're going to do a watch along from Raw is War 25 years ago. Now, this is one of the more infamous Raw is War episodes when you were on the sidelines of WCW. It's at the Reunion Arena, and the Radicals, fresh out of WCW, are going to turn on Cactus Jack and align themselves with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon in order to get into the WWF. It's going to lead to one of the most infamous Raw main events of all time, where Cactus and The Rock team up against Too Cool and Rikishi. Their baby faces on the rise, who months before were just comedy acts. We've also got Kurt Angle hitting an Olympic slam on a pregnant Mae Young, and so much more. We're going to talk about the Sarsa of Monday Night Raw from 25 years ago next week here on the show. We want you to join us live. If you haven't already, go hit the subscribe button right now at 83weeks.com. It costs absolutely nothing. It's totally free. It's our YouTube. Just make it easy for you to find. That's 83weeks.com. And when you get there, hit that notifications bell. You don't want to miss the next time we're live. You'll be able to ask Eric anything. In the meantime, try to piss him off. Have fun with it, by God. He's at eBischoff on Twitter. On Instagram, it's at the real Eric Bischoff. He's handing out blocks left and right for free. You can follow the show at 83 Weeks on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And boxofgimmicks.com has you hooked up for all your merch. Did we get it all out? Have we covered Jim Duggan as thoroughly as we can during his WCW years today, Eric?
I think we did a great job. Did a great job. Thank you, by the way.
I loved it. I love me some Jim Duggan, and I hope you guys have a great day. Ho, tough guy. Thank you. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-free shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.